Hello, my dear brothers. I've decided to start uploading new story series on my 3 new channels even before they reach 1,000 subscribers. I'd really appreciate it if you could stop by, subscribe, and support them. Thank you all so much for being here with me. Love you guys. This discovery made Lin Shi ponder. So, spiritual power doesn't originate from the brain, but from human will, or what is called the soul. No wonder the people of the Somnian continent collectively refer to the spiritual domain as the consciousness body. In fact, this proves that the physical body and the consciousness body are 2 distinct realms of cultivation. How is it? Did it succeed? Lin Rongxuan asked. Lin Shi nodded, taking the glasses-shaped vessel off Xia Chun's face. Before this, he had weakened Ji Shui's consciousness body to prevent Xia Chun from suffering any backlash after his consciousness entered the vessel. Everything seemed to have succeeded. Lin Rongxuan took Xia Chun's body from Lin Shi's hands. Xiao Shuang, step outside for a moment. Qin Shuang understood Lin Rongxuan's intention, bowed her head, and left the seclusion room. After Qin Shuang left, Lin Rongxuan quickly took off Xia Chun's clothes and carefully placed him into the hibernation pod, ensuring every tube was correctly connected to its corresponding position. Once the procedures were complete, Lin Rongxuan gently closed the lid of the hibernation pod. It's done. Lin Rongxuan breathed a sigh of relief, a satisfied smile blooming on his face. He looked at the sealed hibernation pod, then shifted his gaze to Lin Shi standing nearby. Lin Shi looked at Xia Chun sleeping soundly in the hibernation pod, his eyes complex. Then he turned to his 2 fathers and said firmly, "Next, it's my turn. Once I fall unconscious, please put me into the hibernation pod, father. For now, you should step out first. I'm about to open the spatial passage, and no one else can be here during this process. No matter what happens, protecting yourself is the most important thing." Lin Rongxuan tightly gripped his son's hand, his eyes brimming with worry and reluctance. "Yeah, wishing you a smooth journey." Lin Mingjin patted Lin Shi's shoulder, offering silent encouragement. Actually, Lin Rongxuan and Lin Mingjin had already given him thorough instructions beforehand. At this moment, there was no need for many words. A single look conveyed 1,000 words. Lin Shi read the worry and expectations in his father's eyes, and a surge of warmth welled up in his heart. "Don't worry, Dad. I know what to do. I will definitely return safely. Wait for me." Lin Shi nodded vigorously, giving his fathers a confident smile. After the 2 left the seclusion room, Lin Shi took a deep breath and softly called out to Qing Zhou inside the treasure basin. "I'm ready. We can begin. Next, I will materialize the treasure basin outside your body. You just need to focus your mind, like Xia Chun, and transfer your consciousness into the treasure basin. Leave the rest to me." Lin Shi nodded slightly, indicating he understood. He closed his eyes, trying to calm his mind and focus entirely on what was about to happen. Just as Qing Zhou said, not long after, Lin Shi felt a strange energy emerge from his palm. Immediately after, a real treasure basin appeared in his hand. Although he had witnessed others do it twice, it wasn't until he did it himself that Lin Shi truly understood why Xia Chun had such a hard time transferring his consciousness. One must know that human consciousness, or the soul, is inherently accustomed to residing within the physical body. This innate dependence makes it extremely difficult for ordinary people to detach it and transfer it into another object. He had to overcome this obstacle to successfully complete the consciousness transfer. As time passed, Lin Shi gradually got the hang of it. He first needed to abandon his physical body, discard his reliance on it, and condense his consciousness into a compact sphere. Then, he guided his consciousness along his arm and into the treasure basin. During this process, Lin Shi watched his own blood circulation and origin power fluctuations from a third-person perspective. When Lin Shi's consciousness reached his hand and established a miraculous connection with the treasure basin, he personally felt himself lose control. His body. He watched helplessly as his physical body collapsed onto the futon where he usually meditated. "All right, the rest is up to me," Qing Zhou said. This time, Lin Shi didn't see Qing Zhou's words with his eyes, but directly perceived the meaning Qing Zhou conveyed through his consciousness. Lin Shi had previously sensed the space inside the treasure basin through Qing Zhou's memories. It was a chaotic space, but unlike last time, Lin Shi had perceived the treasure basin and the outside world through Qing Zhou's senses. But this time, Lin Shi was perceiving it himself with his own consciousness body. With just a slight use of spiritual power, Lin Shi immediately sensed a consciousness body nearby that was vastly larger than his own. That was Qing Zhou's consciousness body. This time, Lin Shi directly felt that Qing Zhou's consciousness body was much stronger than his own. Therefore, Lin Shi's initial suspicion that Qing Zhou was plotting something against his body was actually an overreaction. With Qing Zhou's strength, if he had wanted to snatch Lin Shi's body from the start, he could have easily done so. "Let's begin," Qing Zhou said. As soon as Qing Zhou finished speaking, a massive surge of energy radiated from the treasure basin. In an instant, the treasure basin and another glasses-shaped vessel vanished from the seclusion room, opening a new chapter. Thank you to all the big shots for your support and companionship all this time. I hope you'll continue to walk with me on the journey ahead. Sanlian Continent, outskirts of New District 9. The 7th Combat Squad of New District 9 was carrying out a mission to hunt desolate beasts. A combat squad consisted not only of fighters, but also support and logistics personnel. At this moment, several logistics personnel were dissecting the corpse of a level 1 desolate beast. Desolate beasts had massive bodies, possessing terrifying destructive power and strength. When it was alive, almost no one on the Sanlian continent could break through its outer shell. But once a desolate beast died, its body would weaken significantly, allowing it to be cut and dismantled using specialized tools. The outer shell of a desolate beast was the main material for crafting combat armor, while the precious desolate crystal could be found inside its body. A burly, middle-aged man with a scruffy, unkempt beard yelled at several logistics personnel, "Hurry up! Haven't you eaten? If you have the skills, do it. If not, get the hell out." Hearing the shout, the others gathered around the middle-aged man, including a female fighter. A young man spoke up, "Captain, we hunted 2 desolate beasts this time, and it went so smoothly. I say, how about we all head to the Misty Tavern to celebrate when we get back?" As soon as he finished, the others burst into laughter. A hearty roar of laughter echoed, the kind of laugh only men would understand. Only the sole female member of the squad snorted coldly and turned her face away. Seeing this, the guy who just suggested the tavern walked over to her. He pointed at a logistics worker who was struggling to dissect the beast corpse in the crowd, a look of disdain flashing in his eyes. Then he teased, "Ryu, want to invite your stay-at-home boyfriend to come hang out too? Let him have some fun with us." Ryu, a girl with delicate features and a well-proportioned figure, wasn't a peerless beauty but was quite pretty. With her long legs, her appearance score could easily pass a 70. However, her boyfriend wasn't an official member of New District 9's 7th Combat Squad, but merely a logistics worker who could be replaced at any time. Official squad members were directly affiliated with the federal government and held formal positions. The job was quite free. Their main task was hunting desolate beasts. The more they killed, the higher their contribution points. The beasts they hunted also belonged to them, making their income significantly higher than other professions in the Federation. Logistics workers, on the other hand, had no formal status. Every time they went on a mission, they only received a fixed federal stipend, just enough to scrape by in the Federation, and naturally had to bear certain risks. Rui was also just a logistics worker a year ago, only getting recruited into the official squad after unlocking level 2 spiritual power. As for her boyfriend, Qin Shi, he was still a logistics worker with his spiritual power stuck at level 1. The two used to be deeply in love, planning to save up enough money to buy a house in the suburbs of New District 9 and get married. But now, Ryu glared at Yiwang. Yiwang looked her up and down, his gaze lingering for an extra second on her long legs, then reached out and lightly pinched her waist. "All right, I was just joking with the captain earlier. With a beauty like you here, why would I go looking for those filthy women? Last time I told you to reconsider being my girlfriend. Have you thought it through? I don't want to keep sneaking around. If we get caught, people will say you're cheating and your reputation will be ruined." Ryu gritted her teeth, looking conflicted. "Didn't you say we'd just be lovers? Qin Shi and I have been together for a long time. We're planning to get married." Yiwang continued to flatter her. "Don't worry. If you follow me, I'll definitely marry you. You've already given me everything. If you don't marry me, Are you going to marry that coward? Believe it or not, I'll tell him straight to his face that you're my woman. He'd only dare to get mad. He wouldn't dare do anything to me. Don't tell him I agreed, Ruyu said hastily. She was afraid Yi Wang would tell Qinshi about their affair. But Yi Wang, whether out of thrill or premeditation, pushed Ruyu aside, walked over to where Qinshi was processing the beast corpse, and said, "Kid, didn't you know? Your girlfriend is with me now. She's my woman. I really have to thank you for taking care of my girlfriend all this time." Huh. Right at that moment, the ground shook violently. Screams erupted from behind. A beast horde. A desolate beast horde is coming. Run. Run. Hearing the beast horde, Yi Wang lost all mood to gloat and immediately fled in panic. After all, in the face of danger, one's little life was the most important. As for Qinshi, he was still stunned by Yi Wang's words. Before he could snap out of it, he watched in despair as his lover abandoned him and ran away. The girl he loved with all his heart. He had no idea that behind him, a massive pincer had fallen from the sky, plunging straight toward him. Just as the giant pincer fell, no one noticed a faint golden light descending first, vanishing into the top of Qinshi's head. In the blink of an eye, Qinshi's gaze drastically changed. It's a desolate beast. Strong defense, but weak spiritual power. Use a spiritual power attack. The treasure basin interface appeared before his eyes, reminding Lin Shi, who had just landed and possessed someone else's body. Lin Shi reacted swiftly. After taking over the body, he immediately sprang up from his original standing position. Instantly, he shaped his spiritual power into a blade and slashed at the desolate beast. Enduring a terrifying level 9 spiritual power attack, the desolate beast didn't even have time to cry out before its consciousness was instantly shattered. A loud crash echoed. Losing its conscious control, its massive body heavily collapsed to the ground. Lin Shi observed this desolate beast closely. One of its arms was a pincer like a fiddler crab's, while the other had 5 sharp, claw-like fingers. Its body resembled a gorilla, but 4 or 5 times larger. Its exterior was covered in a hard, dark brown shell. Its eyes were small slits cracked open from the hard shell on its head, and its mouth was filled with sharp fangs. Its appearance was incredibly ferocious. This beast horde had over 10 of them. Besides the one Lin Shi just killed, another had crushed a logistics worker to death with its pincer just a second ago. The remaining desolate beasts chased after the fleeing people. The beast that had just killed someone didn't rush to attack Lin Shi. Instead, it used its blood-stained pincer to pick up the crushed corpse, stuffed it into its fang-filled mouth, and chewed ravenously. The sickening crunch of flesh and bone being pulverized echoed in Lin Shi's ears, incredibly grating. Lin Shi used a bolt of spiritual power to obliterate this desolate beast as well. Out of habit, he wanted to store the corpses in his spatial dimension, but it didn't work. Desolate beasts had properties similar to vessels and couldn't be stored in spatial dimensions. Fine, storing them is useless anyway. Desolate beasts had no origin power. So Lin Shi was about to leave and check if they had desolate crystals inside them, as Qinshi reminded him. Hearing this, Lin Shi stopped and took out an Origin Chi dagger from his equipment space. This Origin Chi dagger was made from level 6 materials and was incredibly sharp, easily tearing through the desolate beast's tough body. Inside the head of one desolate beast, Lin Shi found a faintly glowing desolate crystal. He tried to store the desolate crystal in his spatial dimension, but the result was the same. Fortunately, this desolate crystal was small, only about half the size of a thumb, so Lin Shi just slipped it into his pocket. Due to this sudden desolate beast attack, the original squad members had either escaped or died. Now, Lin Shi was all alone, surrounded by a desolate wasteland that looked the same in every direction. Thanks to his powerful spiritual power, Lin Shi sensed signs of human activity in a towering city over 100 kilometers away. Determining the direction, Lin Shi walked toward the human settlement. As he walked, Lin Shi contacted Xia Chun through his consciousness. Lin Shi, Xia Chun, how are you? Where did you land? Xia Chun, I'm fine, not dead. I landed in a residential area. What about you? Lin Shi, I'm in the wilderness. I found a body. Xia Chun, me too. I've got a bit of a situation here. Let's talk later. The reverse spatial teleportation explosion was too intense, causing the two vessels to separate upon landing. Qing Zhou's consciousness body had expended a lot of spiritual power to protect Lin Shi from the impact of spatial energy. Xia Chun's situation wasn't much better. Fortunately, they could still contact each other through the communication devices they always used. Knowing he was alive was good enough. With Xia Chun's brilliant mind, he definitely wouldn't end up unable to survive. Yeah. New District 7. Inside an apartment, Xia Chun looked in the mirror, seeing himself in this 15 or 16-year-old body that was pitifully frail. Compared to the skinniest survivors in the base, this body was much weaker. Xia Chun looked at the fat-faced, big-eared old man lying dead on the floor, bleeding from his orifices. Right after he possessed this boy's body, and before he could even adapt, this old man had barged into the room. The moment he entered, he started taking off his clothes. Hearing the foul, obscene words spewing from this old man's mouth, Xia Chun realized just how terrible his body's situation was. Xia Chun immediately used a spiritual power attack and killed the old man. It's not that I intentionally wanted to kill someone, but he truly deserved to die, Xia Chun muttered to himself. He picked up an ID card that fell from the old man's pocket. XYZ 3409, Zhang San, permanent resident of New District 7. He then used his spiritual power to observe his surroundings. Who knows what he saw, but Xia Chun's gentle, friendly eyes suddenly turned incredibly sharp. It's not that I intentionally wanted to kill someone, but they all deserve to die. Before Lin Shi reached the human settlement, he ran into Ru Yu, who had just escaped the desolate beast attack with the others. Qin Shi, you're not dead. Ru Yu looked at Lin Shi in shock. Lin Shi immediately understood. This woman was calling the name of the owner of the body he had possessed. Coincidentally, this body's name was somewhat similar to his. If it weren't for Lin Shi, the original owner of this body would have died long ago. Looking at the previous situation, these two were likely teammates. Lin Shi intended to gather some useful information from this woman. Yeah, barely escaped. Ru Yu felt the Qin Shi in front of her was a bit strange, because the usual Qin Shi would absolutely never look at her with such cold eyes. But recalling what Yi Wang had said earlier, Ru Yu felt a bit guilty and avoided his gaze. Are you mad at me? Don't listen to Yi Wang's nonsense. I didn't. Ru Yu found it hard to speak. Oh, you didn't what? Lin Shi watched the woman's expression quickly shift from guilty to resolute, and finally to angry and self-righteous. Fine, Qin Shi, I'll just say it straight. I've fallen in love with Yi Wang. Let's break up. I'm a highly valued official member, and you're just logistics. You're not worthy of me anymore. Qin Shi, you really were very good to me, but your talent is limited. It'll be hard for you to break through to level 2 spiritual power in this lifetime, so I think we should break up. Let's not hold each other back from happiness, okay? I hope when we get back to the city, you'll voluntarily leave the squad. A logistics worker with no hope of leveling up will just die in the wilderness. This is my final piece of advice to you as your ex. The more Ru Yu spoke, the more excited she got, eventually even offering advice to Lin Shi. The way she spoke, it was as if she was moved by her own kindness. Lin Shi heard everything clearly. So this body and the woman in front of him used to be lovers. No, more accurately, they were probably still lovers a second ago. Now he was being dumped. Even the reason for the breakup was ridiculously absurd. It was obvious this woman was cheating, yet she spoke as if she was the one being abandoned, as if she was the victim. Lin Shi gave a brief response, then turned and walked away. He felt this woman wasn't very smart, and he probably wouldn't get any useful information out of her anyway. Ru Yu initially thought Qin Shi would get angry, yell and question her, or cry and beg her to stay. She never expected the man who had loved her for 5 years and was willing to do anything for her to react so indifferently. Ru Yu felt uncomfortable, an indescribable feeling welling up inside her. It felt as if she was the one being dumped. Qin Shi was supposed to frantically ask her why she betrayed him. She couldn't help but chase after him, saying, Qin Shi, did you hear me? We're breaking up. I'm dumping you. I don't want to keep living a miserable life with you anymore. Do you know how it feels to save every single penny every day? Going to the market to buy discounted food, scrimping, and saving to the extreme. Even if you risk your life saving every penny in the logistics squad, it'll still take you years to afford a house in the suburbs. Do you know? Just because you're only logistics, while every time I go on a mission, I earn more than your entire year's income. Qin Shi, I'm no longer the girl who can eat cheap street food with you. When we get back, I'll give you my reward this time as a breakup fee. Lin Shi suddenly turned around. Ruyu was frightened by Lin Shi's gaze. Boom. A second later, a loud explosion echoed behind them. A desolate beast had appeared out of nowhere behind them. But at this moment, the desolate beast was already dead. A desolate beast. Ruyu stared in horror at the massive desolate beast corpse, looking around, searching for the high-level fighter who killed it. But there was no one around except her and Qin Shi. No one else. When Ruyu turned back, she saw Lin Shi digging into the desolate beast's head, looking for a desolate crystal. What are you doing? Qin Shi, are you crazy? Stop right now. Someone else killed that desolate beast. Ruyu assumed that besides her, there must be another high-level fighter who could easily kill such a desolate beast. That's why she angrily scolded Lin Shi for looking for the desolate crystal. Lin Shi couldn't be bothered to pay attention to this woman. He searched for a while, didn't find a desolate crystal, shook his hand, and stood up. At this moment, a figure ran over from a distance. Ruyu. Thank goodness, are you okay? Yu Wang, it's you. The two immediately hugged each other upon meeting. Lin Shi frowned. The adulterous couple had reunited, so it had nothing to do with him anymore. Lin Shi didn't even glance at them and walked straight away. Seeing Lin Shi, Yu Wang's face instantly darkened. You saved him? Ruyu hurriedly waved her hands, explaining, No, I didn't. He ran over here himself. I've already made it clear to him. We won't have anything to do with each other anymore. Darling, it's good that you've thought it through. Yu Wang quickly walked over to the desolate beast corpse, frowned, and asked Ruyu, What happened to this desolate beast? Did you kill it? Ruyu was also very surprised, staring wide-eyed at Yu Wang, asking back, Didn't you kill it? She had just seen Yu Wang approaching from a distance and assumed this powerful beast was killed by him. But hearing Yu Wang's question, she realized that might not be the case. Neither of them had attacked the desolate beast, and there was no one else suspicious around. Therefore, both of them turned their suspicious gazes toward Lin Shi, who had already walked far away. Yu Wang knelt down and inspected the desolate beast corpse. A moment later, he said in a deep voice, This is a level 1 desolate beast. Only someone with level 2 spiritual power could kill it alone. Could it be? Qin Shi has already broken through to level 2 spiritual power. Yu Wang's eyes grew even darker. He seemed to have figured everything out, smugly believing he had found the truth. Ruyu covered her mouth and gasped. You mean, he can become an official member now? I just broke up with him, telling him he'd never level up in his life. Ruyu suddenly felt regret. She remembered all the good things Qin Shi had done for her. That kind of goodness, Yu Wang didn't have. She loved Yu Wang because Qin Shi couldn't break through his spiritual power and become an official member. She didn't want to keep living a life of deprivation, being ordered around alongside Qin Shi. If Qin Shi had broken through, didn't that mean she made the wrong choice? Right at that moment, Yu Wang suddenly exclaimed, This desolate beast has been cut open. His attention was drawn to the wound on the desolate beast's head. Ruyu said, It was Qin Shi. I just saw him using a dagger to cut open the desolate beast to look for a desolate crystal. A dagger? So did he find it? Yu Wang narrowed his eyes. A single desolate crystal was incredibly valuable and had to be handed over to the federal government. In return, one would receive a sum of federal credits and contribution points. But if anyone dared to keep it for themselves, once discovered, they would face severe punishment, even permanent imprisonment in a federal prison. I don't think so. He didn't find a desolate crystal. With his lowly logistic status, how could he not take other materials from the desolate beast? I bet he definitely found the desolate crystal, which is why he ran away so fast. Yu Wang flashed a sly and sinister smile. Not bad. Qin Shi dares to openly defy squad regulations and intends to embezzle a desolate crystal. We can't delay this. Let's report to the captain immediately and see how he deals with Qin Shi. Ruyu stared wide-eyed. She knew Yu Wang was fabricating the truth. But if she could never see Qin Shi again, it would mean her choice wasn't wrong. She would never regret today's decision. Having Qin Shi disappear forever, locked up in a federal prison, might not be a bad option. Let's go find the captain. Lin Shi walked into the residential area located at the foot of the city wall. Compared to the secret bases outside the walls on Earth, The walls here were taller and thicker, like an impregnable fortress. The city walls clearly showed many signs of repair. These marks were very noticeable, obviously indicating that this place frequently suffered fierce attacks from desolate beasts. Lin Shi arrived at the city gate. Just as he was about to step inside, a loud voice rang out, interrupting his steps. "Halt! Show your ID card." It was the gate guard calling out to Lin Shi. Lin Shi calmly took an ID card out of his pocket. It was Qin Shi's identification. This card looked very similar to the ID cards on Earth, but there were still some differences. He lightly placed the card on the scanner at the gate. With a beep, the machine quickly read and verified the information. After confirming there were no errors, the gate guard gave a slight nod. "All right, you may enter." Lin Shi smoothly passed the inspection and entered the inner city. But the sight before him left him slightly surprised. The architecture of the Somnian continent didn't give him much of a high-tech vibe. On the contrary, the buildings in this world looked quite old, even more ancient than he had imagined. Although the houses on both sides of the street were neatly arranged, the walls were severely degraded, windows were shattered, and the roofs clearly showed the marks of time. A quaint and rustic atmosphere filled the air. It seemed as if time had stood still here. In Qing Zhou's memories, the inner city architecture of the Somnian continent 10,000 years ago was like the architecture of the 70s and 80s on Earth. To this day, the architecture here still maintained that style. This showed that over the past 10,000 years, the people of the Somnian continent hadn't made any progress in civilian livelihood. Or rather, they had focused their resources in other directions. In fact, Lin Shi had already learned from his conversation with Ji Shui that the Somnian continent placed great importance on researching spatial passages, even going so far as to invest half of their resources into it. This decision had changed the development trajectory of the entire continent, resulting in rather backward civilian infrastructure. The other half of the resources was used to research military power. Because in order to survive, the humanity of the Somnian continent had to fend off the endless invasions of desolate beasts. What was worrying was that these desolate beasts seemed endless. Wipe out one group, and another would appear, as if they could never be completely eradicated. At the same time, the climate of the Somnian continent had become harsher, vastly different from the simple day and night temperature differences of 10,000 years ago. If this trend continued, perhaps one day, the humanity of the Somnian continent would have to migrate en masse through the spatial passages to Earth in search of survival. Of course, right now that was just an idea, a last resort when they were driven to a dead end. Lin Shi walked down the deserted street. It was near dusk, and there were few pedestrians. A person approached, sneakily pulling an object from their chest, and asked in a low voice, "Young man, need this?" Lin Shi saw the person holding a rolled-up pack of Bader cigarettes, and politely declined. The person then moved on to approach someone else. On the Somnian continent, tobacco products were explicitly banned on the market. Not only that, what was astonishing was that in this world, which should have a highly developed level of science and technology, citizens were forbidden from accessing and using any electronic products. It sounded like an absurd joke. Under normal conditions, each household was only allowed to own a single electronic device, a TV, and it only broadcasted programs or news that the federal government wanted the citizens to see. Furthermore, common electronic devices like smartphones, tablets, and personal computers were all contraband. If anyone was caught using contraband, they would face imprisonment and severe penalties. However, a small number of people with special status were allowed to use electronic devices. The reason behind this was quite bizarre. Because life was too boring, ordinary citizens would find all sorts of ways to kill time, even accepting grueling manual labor or working themselves to the bone just to fill the void in their daily lives. Work efficiency was thus significantly improved. At the same time, due to a lack of knowledge and information, the citizens had almost no ability to resist. On this Somnian continent, only two types of people could live on the surface. One was the commoners, belonging to the lowest class of society. The other was the elite class, holding power and wealth. As for the underground activities related to cigarettes, it was actually just the upper class exploiting the trivial things they pretended not to see. They intentionally or unintentionally leaked a bit of resources, allowing the lower class citizens to make a living by trading cigarettes, finding an outlet for consumption while giving them a glimmer of hope to live. The federal government knew exactly how to control this. I didn't expect that after so many years, this place is still the same. Qingzhou sighed. After so many years, the people here are still not treated as human beings. I wonder how the underground fortresses are doing now. Lin Shi also expressed his thoughts. The underground fortresses were where most of the scientific research and human rearing took place. Most citizens of the Sanlian continent were born there. From birth through various artificial technologies until about 13 years old, they would be comprehensively raised and educated there. During this time, based on their intelligence, special abilities, or spiritual power, they would undergo orientation exams. Those who met the standards would be assigned suitable jobs and enjoy a certain degree of freedom. Conversely, they would be banished to the surface, doing hard labor in factories producing and processing machinery parts. Of course, they could also choose not to work, but if they didn't work, they had to find their own food and shelter. If they didn't, even if they starved to death, they would only receive a free corpse collection service. What do you plan to do next? If you want the kind of energy bomb capable of destroying space, only the Federal Scientific Research Institute has that. I vaguely remember, 10,000 years ago, Lab Area 3 specialized in researching this kind of thing. The Federal Scientific Research Institute. Do you want me to test in or sneak in? Lin Shi smirked, asking back. We've successfully made it to the Sanlian continent. Lin Shi relaxed, unable to resist teasing Qingzhou. Qingzhou remained silent. He understood perfectly well how difficult it was to infiltrate the Scientific Research Institute from the surface. But I remember there used to be a massive underground black market in District 7. Lin Shi muttered to himself. Considering that the architecture of the Sanlian continent remained unchanged after 10,000 years, that black market very likely still existed. It was just that District 9 and New District 7 were thousands of kilometers apart. Fortunately, there were flying transport vehicles between districts for people to travel. However, the travel fees between districts were quite high, something ordinary citizens simply couldn't afford. If it were the old Qingzhou, he definitely wouldn't have been able to afford that massive fee either. But now, Lin Shi was holding a desolate crystal, which was incredibly precious on the Sanlian continent. There was no need to mention how valuable a desolate crystal was. Lin Shi had previously heard from Jishui that desolate crystals could be traded at specialized purchasing points in each federal district. He just didn't know where the purchasing point in New District 9 was. Therefore, Lin Shi released his spiritual power, sweeping across the entirety of New District 9 like a tidal wave. Unsurprisingly, the spiritual power warning system was triggered. Woo! Woo! A piercing alarm echoed across the sky of New District 9. The sudden, deafening sound startled the pedestrians, making them look up at the sky with obvious fear on their faces. Even the cigarette vendor who had just pitched to Lin Shi was no exception. Ignoring the uncollected money for the cigarettes, he frantically ran home like a madman. Lin Shi took a deep breath. Initially, he had been lucky enough to think that with his powerful level 9 spiritual power, he wouldn't trigger the city's spiritual power alarm system. Other infrastructures on the Sanlian continent were mediocre, but this warning system was surprisingly sensitive. Fortunately, he noticed the anomaly in time and quickly withdrew his spiritual power. Otherwise, in the moment he accidentally triggered the alarm just now, his location would have been exposed. Lin Shi had no choice but to follow the crowd toward his home. In his pocket, besides the ID card, there was also an access card with the address of Qingzhou's apartment building. Through his previous spiritual power scan, Lin Shi quickly headed toward his home. This district was indeed massive, its area nearly the size of a large province in Xia country or a small country. Without using his abilities, just walking would take at least an hour. Honk honk. At this moment, Lin Shi saw a taxi by the road. Meanwhile, at the central command of New District 9, the atmosphere was incredibly tense. Yi Tian, the district mayor of New District 9, stared intently at the monitor displaying the location of the triggered alarm, frowning as he asked, "What's going on? Who triggered the alarm?" The monitoring staff beside him were working frantically, but still couldn't provide an accurate answer. "Mayor, we still haven't identified who triggered the alarm," a staff member answered anxiously. At this moment, another voice chimed in. "Mayor, could the alarm system be malfunctioning? After all, it's not impossible." But Yi Tian shook his head without hesitation, his tone decisive. Absolutely impossible. The spiritual power warning system has never given a false alarm. This new generation system has never made a mistake. He further explained, this warning system has been thoroughly tested. Whether it's someone with level 3 or level 8 spiritual power, as long as their spiritual power touches the warning system, the system will immediately pinpoint the exact location of the person who triggered it. Everyone fell into deep thought, momentarily at a loss for what to do. Suddenly, someone proposed a bold theory. Then could it be that someone with level 9 spiritual power triggered the alarm? Yi Tian laughed in anger. Are you kidding me? In the entire Federation, besides that person in District 1, who else has reached level 9? Are you trying to say that our Federation's God of War secretly came to our district, ignored federal regulations, and probed our district's situation, thereby triggering the spiritual power alarm? What a load of nonsense. The person who was questioned immediately fell silent. Everyone investigated for a while, but still couldn't find out who triggered the alarm. At a dead end, Yi Tian had no choice but to order the alarm to be turned off. But, as the mayor, Yi Tian didn't dare take it lightly and sternly said, send out a notice. Increase vigilance across the entire district and search for any suspicious personnel. Lin Shi didn't expect that just one spiritual power scan of his would throw the entire new District 9 into chaos. Returning home, he couldn't find any local maps or books related to the Federation, only a diary left behind by Qin Shi. The diary mostly recorded things between him and the woman named Ru Yu. I didn't expect this body to belong to a simp. Qing Zhou spat through the treasure basin interface. You even know the word simp? Lin Shi replied while reading the diary. I catch on fast. Qin Shi's diary showed just how much he loved his girlfriend. The two got together almost immediately after leaving the underground fortress. To realize Ru Yu's dream, they worked hard together to own a house. In recent years, this body had worked day and night, eating poorly, not daring to buy new clothes, and reluctant to eat good food. All his money was spent on Ru Yu. He kept saving and was almost able to afford a house in the suburbs. But heaven didn't grant his wish. Ru Yu broke through to level 2 spiritual power and became a squad member of the 7th Combat Squad. She even hooked up with another man named Yuan. Qin Shi had known the truth for a long time, but to keep Ru Yu, he never exposed her relationship with Yuan. Qin Shi even deluded himself, thinking that since Ru Yu chose to be with Yuan but didn't break up with him, she must still have deep feelings for him. Lin Shi and Qing Zhou mocked him together. After finishing the diary, I should have killed that bitch back in the wilderness. Lin Shi closed the diary. No wonder Ru Yu said Qin Shi wasn't worthy of her back in the wilderness. Although most of this diary was the story of a simp, Lin Shi still gathered some information about this district. At least he knew where to buy desolate crystals in New District 9 and the rules of New District 9. Right? I took over this body. So is the original Qin Shi's consciousness still alive? Lin Shi asked Qing Zhou. Yeah, I stored his consciousness in this space. Wait until we finish our mission. If this body survives, you can give it back to him then, Qing Zhou replied. Lin Shi nodded. It's a bit chaotic outside today, so I'll go out in a few days. I'll just absorb origin power from the origin beast corpses for now. Help me check on Xia Chun's situation and see which district he's in. Also, keep an eye out for anything unusual around here and let me know. With Qing Zhou's help, Lin Shi safely took out an origin beast corpse from his space, placed his hand on it, and began absorbing origin power. He wanted to upgrade this body in a short time to better complete the mission of destroying the spatial passage on this unfamiliar continent. As for the convenience of this body, consider it the interest for using it. It didn't need to be too strong. Lin Shi only needed to upgrade this body to level 6 or above to handle most situations. With his extremely powerful spiritual power foundation, this advancement was even smoother than the last time he used the universe reversal to return to the past. In just 3 days, Lin Shi successfully upgraded his level to the 4th stage. Because his spiritual power was gradually stabilizing and wouldn't mutate anymore, he didn't fall unconscious this time. And now, after advancing, this body's physical stats far exceeded those of ordinary people on the Sanlian continent. Just as Lin Shi was about to take this opportunity to continue breaking through to level 6, Qing Zhou reminded from the treasure basin. Someone's coming. Lin Shi quickly stored the origin beast corpse into his space and immediately realized who was coming. Not long after, a loud bang 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 knocking sound echoed at the door. Qin Shi, come out. We know you're in there. Lin Shi went to the door and opened it. Standing outside were several people, including Qin Shi's ex-girlfriend and Yi Wang. Especially Yi Wang, whose eyes clearly held malicious intent. This group of people, Lin Shi had previously scanned them with his spiritual power when they encountered the desolate beast horde in the wasteland. Plus, after reading Qin Shi's diary, Lin Shi knew these were members of Squad 7, led by Captain Lu Tian. Qin Shi, I heard from Ryu that you've advanced. Congratulations, Captain Lu Tian said with a smile, but there was no joy in his voice. Lin Shi replied with a less than friendly smile, standing at the door and saying curtly, what do you want? He blocked the doorway, having no intention of inviting them in. Seeing the squad members' displeased expressions, Ryu, still acting like the lady of the house, said to Lin Shi, Qin Shi, the captain brought so many people. Aren't you going to invite them in for a bit? Who are you? Lin Shi looked at Ryu coldly, making her feel as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. Lin Shi wasn't Qin Shi. His gaze carried the aura of someone who had held power for a long time. Ryu had never seen such a terrifying gaze and was instantly stunned speechless. Forget it. Who wants to go into that filthy, cramped room anyway? We don't have that kind of free time. Qin Shi, you sure are lucky. Most of the logistics died, and you're the only one left, Yi Wang sneered. Facing the massive, ferocious beast horde, Lu Tian, as the captain, was forced to retreat to save his own life. He ordered the non-combat logistics personnel to act as bait to draw the beast's attention. In other words, only by sacrificing logistics workers like Qin Shi could they get a chance to kill a few beasts after the horde scattered, and then luckily survive. With eyes as cold as ice, Lu Tian stared intently at Lin Shi. I heard you found a desolate crystal. You dare to hide a desolate crystal? Lin Shi raised an eyebrow. He found the desolate crystal when no one was around. How did they know about this? Could there be some special device? Lin Shi's gaze swept over Yi Wang, who was looking at him with a smug and sinister expression, and he understood. So they didn't actually know he had a desolate crystal. They were just framing him. Before Lin Shi could speak, Ryu stood in front of him and explained, Captain, Qin Shi must have gotten lost in the heat of the moment and took the desolate crystal. He didn't mean to hide it. Maybe he wanted to protect us. After speaking, Ryu reached out to pull Lin Shi. Qin Shi, the captain is here. Hurry up and hand over the desolate crystal. This attitude made it seem like she was defending Lin Shi, but anyone observant could see that while Ryu was speaking up for him, every word confirmed that he had taken the desolate crystal. They just assumed Qin Shi had advanced to a level 2 spiritual power user and considered his existence a threat, so they wanted to frame him. They didn't actually believe he had a desolate crystal. Lin Shi slightly dodged Ryu's hand. These people were targeting this body, not him personally. He wasn't angry at all, just looking at them like looking at a bunch of monkeys. Lin Shi sneered. Even if I had a desolate crystal, we were already separated at that time. I hunted it myself. What does it have to do with you? The people opposite him fell silent for a long time. Have to do with us? Of course it does. Desolate crystals are incredibly precious. You might not even find one in 10 low-level beasts. Each one can be exchanged for a huge bounty. Greed blinded the official squad members, making them want to seize it. Especially from Lin Shi, someone they used to order around and who was now defying them. He dared to monopolize a desolate crystal? What rebellion? Before you become an official squad member, what's yours is ours. You're just an errand boy, yet you want to swallow a desolate crystal all by yourself? You really don't know your place. Exactly. Even if you've advanced, without official recognition, you're still just logistics. Crushing you is as easy as snapping a twig. Lin Shi rolled his eyes at them, finally resting his gaze on Lu Tian. Is this your idea? Lu Tian's face was incredibly gloomy, anger burning in his eyes as if he wanted to burn the person in front of him to ashes. He stared at Lin Shi, his gaze icy. Qin Shi, don't be ungrateful. Lu Tian's voice was full of threat and anger. You're just a lowly logistics worker. Let me tell you, even if we kill you and report that you died in the wasteland, no one will come looking for trouble with us. This world wasn't the pre-apocalyptic Xia country. The current federal government only valued the elite class. As for ordinary citizens, they were left to fend for themselves. They could easily raise a massive population in the underground fortresses to replace cheap labor. Every year, every district had a new batch of laborers added. People like the old Qinshi were nothing but weeds. Their deaths didn't matter. Therefore, when the desolate beast horde appeared, these official squad members fled first, leaving the logistics group to buy time and distract the beasts. On this Somnian continent, it clearly wasn't the apocalypse, yet the lives of commoners were as cheap as in the post-apocalyptic Earth. Lin Shi naturally knew the rules of the Somnian continent. Ji Shui was the captain of the Federation's 3rd General Combat Squad and knew these dirty little squads very well. But Lin Shi wasn't the Qin Shi of the past. Lin Shi closed his eyes, about to give these people a devastating blow. Qing Zhou reminded, wait. Lu Tian is carrying a light brain. It might have a surveillance function. If you don't want to be exposed, it's best not to attack. You don't want to be hunted down by the federal combat squads, do you? Yeah. Lin Shi smirked slightly. Troublesome. So hand over the desolate crystal. Seeing Lin Shi remain silent, the others thought he was scared and yelled. Hand it over. Lin Shi shrugged. I don't have a desolate crystal. If you have the guts, kill me. Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Lu Tian looked at the arrogant Lin Shi in front of him, his last bit of patience finally exhausted. He half closed his eyes, focused all his power on a single point, and unleashed his strongest spiritual power attack. The spiritual power condensed into a giant iron hammer, ruthlessly smashing down on Lin Shi. Oh my god, it's the captain's spiritual hammer again. A squad member standing nearby couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Is this Qin Shi trying to turn himself into an idiot just for a desolate crystal? Serves him right. The other squad members looked on with schadenfreude, seemingly having guessed what was about to happen. Ru Yu and Yi Wang also watched, a hint of smugness in the corners of their eyes. Everyone could see that as a level 3 spiritual power user, Lu Tian's strength was far superior to Qin Shi's. After all, in battles between spiritual power users, it usually came down to the difference in levels. Once there was a gap of 1 level or more, the higher-level spiritual power user would have an absolute advantage, easily suppressing or even crushing the lower-level one. As for those who tried to use low-level spiritual power to challenge higher-level users, the ultimate result was severe backlash. Mild cases resulted in dizziness or even unconsciousness, while severe cases led to bleeding from the 7 orifices and becoming an idiot. Seeing that Lu Tian's spiritual power attack showed no mercy this time, they felt as if they were already watching Qin Shi turn into an idiot right before their eyes. But in the blink of an eye, a miserable scream rang out. It wasn't Qin Shi, but their captain Lu Tian. The moment Lu Tian unleashed his strongest spiritual power attack, he suddenly felt his spiritual power hit an inviolable mountain like an egg striking a rock. In an instant, an incredibly powerful force surged back like a reverse tide, causing Lu Tian's spiritual power to backlash against himself many times faster than when he attacked. Accompanied by an agonizing scream, Lu Tian bled from his 7 orifices and simultaneously spat out fresh blood, his body going limp as he collapsed to the ground. Unconscious. Seeing this, the squad members behind him panicked and rushed forward to support Lu Tian. Then they glared at Lin Shi, shouting, Qin Shi, what did you do to the captain? Even if they believed in ghosts, they wouldn't believe Lin Shi's spiritual power was higher than Lu Tian's. Lin Shi sneered, did I touch him? Are you blind? You? Forget it. Hurry up and take the captain to the hospital. Right, the captain is more important. The group came in a hurry and left in a hurry, no one staying behind to give Lin Shi a hard time. Perhaps they thought someone at the bottom of society like Lin Shi couldn't run away anyway, so they'd settle the score later. That saved Lin Shi some trouble. In the blink of an eye, only Ru Yu was left. She had just returned from outside the city with the squad and was the one who brought them to the house she rented next to Lin Shi's. The two originally rented the house together, but out of respect for Ru Yu, Qin Shi always slept in a separate room. Good thing they didn't sleep together. If he had to sleep with this kind of woman, Lin Shi would feel disgusted. Qin Shi. Yeah. Ru Yu looked at Lin Shi, hesitating to speak. She felt Qin Shi was different today, as if he had become a different person. Both his gaze and aura made her tremble. Her feelings for Qin Shi, which had already cooled, reacted differently. If Qin Shi was like this, Ryu thought she could still accept him. Seeing Lin Shi step aside, Ryu secretly rejoiced, thinking Qin Shi wasn't mad, and prepared to take off her shoes and enter the house. But Lin Shi pulled a suitcase out from behind the door and threw it straight at Ryu, who had just taken off her shoes and was about to step in. Ryu was knocked flat on her back by the suitcase. Ouch! These are your things. Get lost. After Lin Shi finished speaking, he slammed the door shut. The rent for this room was still paid by the old Qin Shi, and it had nothing to do with the woman in front of him. Lin Shi's intention was extremely clear. Qin Shi. You. Ryu's eyes were red. She never expected the man who used to love her to be so heartless. Lin Shi coldly looked at this two-faced, malicious woman. He had just observed Yi Wang. That guy was no good either, a treacherous and petty person. This woman following Yi Wang definitely wouldn't have a good end. Lin Shi didn't want to waste energy helping this body clean up this woman, so he didn't even bother looking at Ryu crying and directly slammed the door shut. Only Ryu was left to walk away in resentment and anger. Once everyone was gone, Lin Shi continued to absorb origin power. Finally, 3 days later, the origin power in his body reached the 6th stage. This time, because this body wasn't his real body, upon reaching the 6th stage, Lin Shi awakened a new ability called Origin Power Shield. Origin Power Shield, true to its name, was formed from origin power to create a protective shield that could block physical and energy damage. Compared to Lin Shi's previous telekinesis ability, this ability was indeed far inferior, lacking even the slightest offensive capability. But Qin Zhou felt this ability suited the current Lin Shi very well. With this ability, when we destroy the spatial passage, it will definitely come in handy. Also, the Sanlian continent has many high-tech weapons. Those weapons aren't very effective against desolate beasts, but their lethality against humans is very strong, much higher than the firearms of soldiers on Earth. If you face off against the Federation later, this ability can protect you. Qin Zhou guessed Lin Shi's personality. Sooner or later, he would directly clash with the federal headquarters. Don't worry, I won't rush to expose my identity. I know how to hold back. Lin Shi smiled helplessly. What if he revealed his hot temper? If he still had his old temper, those squad members who came to cause trouble wouldn't have returned alive, but would have turned into a few more corpses in Lin Shi's space. I hope so. Qin Zhou still felt Lin Shi was someone who absolutely wouldn't let himself suffer grievances. And the Sanlian continent had strict hierarchies, with all sorts of unfair treatment happening constantly. If Lin Shi encountered it, he definitely wouldn't let it slide. It seemed that after being with Lin Shi for so long, Qin Zhou understood him quite well. It was just that Lin Shi didn't come to this world to do whatever he pleased, but carried the arduous mission of destroying the spatial passage. Naturally, he couldn't act as recklessly as he did on Earth. How's the situation on Xiachun's side? Lin Shi changed the subject, asking about Xiachun. Xiachun is in New District 7. He investigated and confirmed that there really is a massive underground black market there. That place is very likely what we're looking for. Qin Zhou had contacted Xiachun while Lin Shi was absorbing origin power to level up, and learned that the district Xiachun was in was exactly where they needed to go. Very good. Then we'll head to District 7 first, and then find a chance to locate the spatial passage. Currently, Lin Shi only knew that the parallel spatial passage was located in a certain ocean area, but he didn't know exactly where. Through Qin Zhou's memories, Lin Shi knew the total area of the Sanlian continent was much larger than Earth. Without a map, relying solely on spiritual power, who knew how much time would be wasted. Therefore, he would go to the underground black market to see if he could find information about the spatial passage. If not, he would have to do it manually, searching bit by bit. At the very least, he needed to get a map of the Sanlian continent. After setting his goal, Lin Shi left the apartment and headed to the desolate crystal purchasing point in New District 9 to prepare travel funds. Because it was a bit far, Lin Shi called a taxi. Hearing that Lin Shi was going to the government's desolate beast material purchasing point, the driver looked at him with admiration, assuming Lin Shi was an official member of some combat squad going there. Upon arrival, Lin Shi went straight into the purchasing point. The staff there seemed arrogant, especially when they saw Lin Shi was an unfamiliar face. That was until Lin Shi took out the desolate crystal to exchange for federal credits. 10 minutes later, Lin Shi was escorted out of the purchasing point by the purchasing staff, who had a wide smile on their face. This scene made the taxi drivers waiting at the gate gasp in admiration. They had been mingling in cities big and small for a long time, so they understood why the purchasing staff were so picky. The people who could make the purchasing staff happily accept their items could be counted on one hand. They weren't just squad captains, but even higher-level figures. Therefore, the taxi drivers all looked at Lin Shi with shining eyes, as if just having Lin Shi get in their car would give them something to brag about to their friends. Lin Shi did indeed get into a taxi. He planned to use the 1 million federal credits he just earned to buy an airship ticket from New District 9 to New District 7. The ID card on the Somnian continent also served as everyone's bank card. The federal credits exchanged from the desolate crystal were now in Qin Shi's card. Although it seemed like a lot, it actually wasn't enough. Because Lin Shi had just inquired, a single inter-district airship trip cost hundreds of thousands. Further distances could cost up to several hundred thousand. Such exorbitant prices meant ordinary people could almost never leave the district they lived in for their entire lives. Arriving at the airship ticket station, Lin Shi got in the car and told the driver. The driver kept nodding, but upon hearing Lin Shi's destination, he was slightly stunned. Lin Shi noticed the change in the driver's expression. "What's wrong?" "Not going." No, I'm going," the driver hurriedly explained. "I thought you were a big shot who would use a light brain to buy tickets. We ordinary people basically can't afford tickets to other districts. I heard the airship ticket station in our district usually has no one buying tickets." Actually, the driver was speaking very tactfully. They drove all over the city every day and knew exactly where the wealthy clients were and which places were deserted. As for the so-called airship ticket station, it was closed almost all year round, just there for show. For lower-class people like them, they could never spend hundreds of thousands just to cross the inner city in their entire lives. To visit another district. Lin Shi frowned slightly. He didn't expect it to be like this. "Let's go take a look." The driver complied, then drove Lin Shi across more than half of New District 9, finally arriving at the legendary airship ticket station. Just as the driver said, there was an airship ticket station there, but the doors were tightly shut. A giant bronze padlock covered in dust proved that no one had bought a ticket here in a long time. From the taxi driver's words, Lin Shi confirmed that the class division on the Somnian continent was incredibly severe. Ordinary people now didn't even have the right to travel to other districts. In my time, ordinary people still had the chance to go to other districts, although it was very rare. Qingzhou was also surprised by this situation. If airship tickets weren't sold to ordinary people, they could only live their entire lives in one district. Furthermore, besides TVs, they had no other electronic devices to connect with the outside world. The entire district was their lifelong prison, a life so confined it was suffocating. Lin Shi looked at the driver again. He was about 45 or 46 years old, his face deeply etched with the marks of time. "Do you know where they sell light brains?" Lin Shi sat in the back seat and asked the taxi driver. "Sir." Hearing this, the driver was slightly taken aback, a look of surprise on his face. A light brain was a high-end device, not something just anyone could have. Ordinary people usually thought light brains were only for high-ranking officials who controlled many resources. The driver assumed Lin Shi was probably the captain of some combat squad who had just made a name for himself. To ordinary people, that was already a big shot. It was impossible for him not to have a light brain. He glanced at Lin Shi through the rearview mirror, wondering if his guess was wrong. Despite his curiosity, out of awe for someone who could be a big shot like Lin Shi, the driver didn't dare say too much, afraid of accidentally offending him. After hesitating for a moment, he replied, "There's a place in the city center that sells light brains, but you have to pass a strict identity check. As far as I know, only high-ranking officials, combat squad captains, or people with a level 3 spiritual power certification are issued light brains." Lin Shi frowned. "Is that so?" To buy an airship ticket to New District 7, he had to go get his spiritual power level tested, get a level 3 certification, and then buy a light brain. How troublesome. If he just flew there himself, why would he need to buy a ticket? But Qingzhou seemed to have guessed Lin Shi's thoughts. The Federation banned firearms 10,000 years ago. Every city has an air defense system. If you don't want to be shot down, just take it slow. Lin Shi naturally knew this. He had studied the history of the Somlian continent with Qing Zhou. Human firearm technology developed rapidly, powerful enough to decide victory or defeat in an instant. The entire continent was no longer divided into countries, replaced by a unified government run by the Federation. But just when everyone thought human society would fall into endless internal conflict, a mysterious and terrifying creature, the Desolate Beast, appeared on the Somlian continent. Desolate beasts appeared without any pattern, as if springing up from the ground. Their skin was incredibly tough, rendering the Federation's firearms and hot weapons useless. Furthermore, the energy from hot weapons was even absorbed, making their skin even tougher. Cold weapons were more effective. But due to the frail physique of humans, wanting to use cold weapons against desolate beasts with high defense and strength was a pipe dream. Many people believed the appearance of desolate beasts was targeted at humanity. Forced into a corner, the Federation shrank human living areas, dividing them into 10 districts. Each district built massive city walls and deployed weapons to fend off the desolate beasts. 10,000 years later, due to each city being managed independently for so long, every district mayor was practically a king in their own domain. In that peaceful city, there were actually always various weapons ready to attack any target. Lin Shi thought for a moment, then asked, besides buying a light brain and the airship ticket station, is there any other way to buy an airship ticket? The taxi driver shook his head. I'm afraid not. This is a federal regulation. However, he hesitated to speak. However what? Lin Shi asked. I heard that in some areas, the black market might sell illegal airship tickets, but the price is very high and the risks are great, the taxi driver said softly. But I've only heard rumors. Lin Shi thanked him and began calculating his next plan. Glancing at the sky, he decided to head home first and figure out a way to get a level 3 spiritual power identity certification tomorrow. Lin Shi gave the driver the address of the apartment and leaned back in his seat, closing his eyes to rest. Before long, the car stopped in front of the apartment. Lin Shi happened to look at his watch. It was quite late. He paid the fare and was about to get out when he suddenly remembered something and asked, I still don't know what to call you. The taxi driver was a bit surprised, turned around, smiled, and replied, Sir, just call me Chu-san. Lin Shi nodded and continued, Chu-san, if you're free, come back here to pick me up at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll pay extra. Chu-san hesitated for a moment, then happily agreed. No problem, sir. I'll definitely be here waiting for you at 8 tomorrow morning. Lin Shi wanted Chu-san to pick him up because he noticed he drove very smoothly and was very familiar with the inner city roads. Even during their conversation, Chu-san revealed some underground information that even Ji Shui might not know. Considering all factors, Lin Shi thought having Chu-san continue as his driver wasn't a bad choice. Just as he paid and got out of the car, Lin Shi habitually used his spiritual power to observe the apartment building. He saw strangers breaking into the apartment he was staying in. These people were casually rummaging through the place, looking for something. Seeing them, Lin Shi immediately understood why they were here. Last time, Lu Tian overestimated himself and used a spiritual power attack on him, turning himself into an idiot. So the people breaking into his apartment were definitely connected to Lu Tian's incident. Although he had handled it cleanly last time, the fallout this time would definitely be much bigger. Who knows, Lin Shi might already be wanted citywide. But since he hadn't been arrested yet, it proved those people still wanted to settle it secretly. Lin Shi thought for a moment, then turned back to the taxi that was about to leave. Chu-san was still thinking about Lin Shi telling him to pick him up tomorrow when Lin Shi suddenly got back in the car. Chu-san was startled. Sir, drive. Find me a safer hotel. Yes, sir. Lin Shi looked at Chu-san coldly. Feeling the oppressive aura radiating from him, Chu-san, who still had doubts about Lin Shi's identity, had all his suspicions vanish when he felt that powerful presence. The person sitting in this taxi, even if not from a powerful family, was definitely a big shot he couldn't afford to offend. Chu-san started the engine and sped away. We're here, sir. As night fell, the taxi stopped in front of a luxurious and magnificent hotel. Lin Shi looked outside, then told Chu-san before getting out, "Tomorrow at 8. Chu-san nodded profusely. "I guarantee I'll be on time, Mr. Lin." Lin Shi stepped out of the car, his gaze resting on the grand building before him. Starlight Hotel. A familiar name. Lin Shi recalled the information he gathered from Ji Shui about the Sanlian continent. There was a hotel named Starlight, which was not only the largest hotel in every region, but also a famous landmark across the entire Sanlian continent. The Sanlian continent had no national divisions, so there was no concept of nationwide, only continent-wide. This was a continent-wide hotel chain, with a branch in every district of the Sanlian continent. This showed that the faction behind it was incredibly powerful. The true owner of this hotel was always a hot topic of discussion among the people of the Sanlian continent. Lin Shi walked into the hotel. The automatic doors, over 3 meters high, slid open, welcoming him with 2 rows of beautiful receptionists smiling radiantly. Immediately, a waiter stepped forward, handed Lin Shi a hot towel to wipe his hands, and asked, "Sir, how may I help you?" After wiping his hands, Lin Shi returned the towel and said, "Get me a room for 10 days. Please follow me." He followed the waiter to the reception desk. 3 receptionists in neat uniforms stood there, all of them beautiful. With exquisite makeup, they bowed politely to Lin Shi with professional smiles. Lin Shi was led to one of the receptionists, took out his ID card, and handed it to her. "I'd like a room. For 1 night." The receptionist took the card, quickly glanced at Lin Shi's basic information, and said, "Yes, we have standard rooms for X federal credits a night, luxury rooms for Y federal credits, and presidential suites for Z federal credits. Which one would you prefer?" Lin Shi was startled by the prices. His ID card currently had 1.07 million federal credits. 1 million was from selling the desolate crystal, and the remaining 70-something thousand was his savings from the past few years. With the spending power on the Sanlian continent, an ordinary person renting an apartment for a month only cost a few thousand. He thought this money would be enough to stay in a hotel for a long time, but it turned out that if he stayed at this hotel, that money would only cover a standard room for less than 2 months. With professional training, the receptionist subtly noticed Lin Shi's surprise. Maintaining a polite smile, she said, "Our hotel's room rates are slightly higher than others, but we guarantee you won't encounter any trouble, and security is absolutely assured." The hotel offers various entertainment services for different room types. We serve meals on time every day, and guests in luxury suites have menus prepared by private chefs. Of course, you can also order a la carte. Lin Shi nodded and said, "I'd like a standard room. We will use your ID card for registration, and then you can use facial recognition to enter room 607. I need to inform you of some details regarding your stay. You are free to access floors 2 through 9. The 6th floor is the public dining area, and the 9th floor is the entertainment zone. Due to clearance restrictions, you cannot access the floors above the 10th. The hotel is equipped with a mental power alarm system, so please do not let your mental power extend beyond your room." The receptionist briefed Lin Shi on the hotel's rules and other essentials. A few minutes later, Lin Shi took his room card and headed to the elevator. Right after he left, an elegant woman with an outstanding aura stepped out from behind the reception desk. She wore an exquisitely designed dress, her features as delicate as a meticulously painted ink wash portrait, and her deep eyes held an unforgettable, captivating charm. Seeing this woman, the 3 receptionists immediately showed reverence and bowed in unison. "Manager, who was that guest who just checked in?" Qing Yun asked, looking in the direction Lin Shi had left. The receptionist who had just checked Lin Shi in immediately operated the screen. With just a few light taps, Qin Shi's portrait and information popped up. He's an ordinary person named Qin Shi, working logistics in a squad under the 7th Combat Squad. A logistics worker? Qing Yun rested her hand on her chin, her beautiful eyes shifting. For someone like that to come spend money at our luxury hotel, it's highly likely he's hiding from someone he can't afford to offend. It wasn't that Qing Yun had the ability to predict the future. In reality, the guests at their hotel were either wealthy or in deep trouble outside, coming here to lay low. Therefore, whenever a guest checked in, Qing Yun would carefully check their records. Can you check his account? How much money does he have left, and how long does he plan to stay? He said he's staying for 1 night. I checked his account. The balance is over 1 million Federation credits. The receptionist was full of shock, clearly unable to believe that an ordinary person could have so much money. In fact, the hotel couldn't access all of a guest's information. Ordinary guests only left basic details. Information like account balances usually couldn't be checked. But on the Sonlian continent, there was a type of clearance called information clearance. It was divided from level 1 to level 9, with level 1 being the lowest and level 9 the highest. Those holding level 3 clearance or above could use certain electronic devices to access all the information of those with lower clearance. Ordinary people usually only had level 1 clearance, so all their information was visible to those with higher clearance. If an ordinary person had a formal job, they would be upgraded to level 2. They could upgrade through their profession or through a mental power level test. To access someone else's records, one needed at least level 3 clearance and an optical computer. Qin Shi was previously just a squad logistics worker, equivalent to a collaborator, so he only had level 1 clearance. As for the receptionists at the Xingyao Hotel, although they appeared polite and gentle, most of them actually had level 3 clearance. That was why they could view Qin Shi's information. Over 1 million? Interesting. A person with level 1 clearance has over 1 million Federation credits and is willing to spend so much at our hotel. Qin Yun narrowed her eyes, looking intrigued. Keep an eye on this guest. Which room is he in? Qin Yun asked, her tone very calm. Reporting to the manager, room 607. The receptionist replied respectfully. Got it. Qin Yun nodded slightly, then turned and walked toward a private elevator deep in the lobby, one not open to outsiders. From the outside, this elevator looked no different from the regular ones, but as Qin Yun approached, its doors opened automatically, as if recognizing its master, emitting a soft chime. Inside, there was only one button, clearly displaying the number 88. As soon as Qin Yun stepped in, the button lit up, as if welcoming her. Immediately after, the elevator accelerated upward at an astonishing speed, reaching the top floor of the hotel in no time. The 88th floor. At the same time, Lin Shi, who was still using a portion of his mental power to monitor the hotel's first floor, retracted his energy. The receptionist had said he couldn't use mental power to probe other rooms, but she never said he couldn't scan an entire floor. Actually, the moment Lin Shi entered the hotel, he had swept the first floor with his mental power. He immediately noticed the woman in the dress, the one the receptionist called manager. He focused his mental power on this woman for quite a while. It wasn't because her beauty attracted him, but because she emitted the energy of a level 2 evolutionary. On the blue planet, evolutionaries were quite common, but on the Sonlian continent, they were extremely rare, but not non-existent. Because the Sonlian continent had repeatedly used the Pillar of Origin and other methods to extract resources from the blue planet. So, even if a high-level evolutionary appeared in the Federation, Lin Shi wouldn't be too surprised. He just didn't expect to run into one right inside a hotel. Even if she was only level 2, it was enough to prove that the faction behind this hotel was very powerful, definitely among the top tier of the Sonlian continent. That woman was certainly not just an ordinary manager. She likely held a much higher position. Therefore, Lin Shi used his mental power to observe a bit longer. This hotel is interesting. Lin Shi swept the room with his mental power once more, confirming there were no surveillance devices, before comfortably lying down on the bed that was over 2 meters wide. Although it was just a standard room, it was more accurately a small 2-bedroom apartment, complete with a bathroom and a kitchen. One of the rooms was a study, filled with books and a computer. After lying down for a while and feeling bored, Lin Shi got up and went to the study to look around. The study was stocked with all kinds of books, mostly related to the history, culture, and fiction of the Sonlian continent. Lin Shi casually picked up a few, but wasn't very interested, so he quickly put them back. Then, he noticed the computer on the desk. Computers on the Sonlian continent were high-end goods. Not just anyone could use them. He didn't expect an ordinary hotel to be equipped with such modern devices. This computer was different from those on the blue planet in that it had no bulky casing or host unit. The entire computer was just a giant screen. Lin Shi recalled how the receptionist operated her screen earlier and reached out to touch it. Instantly, the screen responded quickly, displaying a prompt. Please use your ID card to verify your identity. Lin Shi took the ID card from his pocket, held it up to the screen, and gave it a gentle shake. A second later, the screen displayed the text, Qin Shi, Level 1 clearance. You can use the hotel's food ordering, room service, and entertainment functions. Alright. Lin Shi tried selecting a few options, but when he wanted to view more detailed content, the screen suddenly popped up a warning. Insufficient clearance. Cannot use this function. Looks like I still need to go verify my mental power level first. Lin Shi felt helpless. On the blue planet, a level 6 powerhouse could do whatever they wanted, but on the Somnian continent, he couldn't do a thing. This made Lin Shi feel quite frustrated. Figuring this was a different world, he forced himself to calm down and slowly adapt. He had only been here for a few days. There was no need to rush many things. Tomorrow, he would go to the central district to verify his mental power level. He needed at least level 3 clearance to buy an optical computer. After that, he would continue his plan. Having made up his mind, Lin Shi took a shower and then used the room service function to order dinner. The waiter quickly brought 4 side dishes and a bowl of soup. They were all dishes Lin Shi had never seen before, and they tasted quite good. It was just that with the body of a level 6 evolutionary, he needed to eat a lot of this normal food to get full. Because of this, Lin Shi had ordered 4 portions, which made the waiter look at him with a strange expression. After eating, Lin Shi used his communication device to contact Xia Chun, who was far away in the new 7th district. Knowing Xia Chun's storage abilities, Lin Shi explained the importance of clearance levels. Xia Chun said he would find a way to get a higher clearance. However, Xia Chun's current situation wasn't great. He was wanted by the new 7th district government for killing too many people. Fortunately, Xia Chun was originally an unregistered resident in the new 7th district, with no identity records whatsoever, so he only needed a disguise to evade capture. Lin Shi couldn't understand how someone as good-natured and careful as Xia Chun could end up killing so many people. Did Xia Chun go crazy? Just as Lin Shi was worrying about Xia Chun, the atmosphere outside the Xingyao Hotel was incredibly tense. A group of people with malicious intent was currently gathered there, glaring fiercely at the hotel entrance. Captain, we've confirmed that Qin Shi is hiding in the Xingyao Hotel. What do we do now? A burly man with a fierce face asked from the crowd. The man called Captain ground his teeth, his eyes flashing with furious fire, and said resentfully, "Humph. That brat definitely knows he caused a huge disaster, so he's hiding in here like a turtle pulling its head into its shell. He dared to harm my little brother like this. It'd be a miracle if I didn't skin him alive today. Later, when we catch him, beat him to a pulp for me. Break every single bone in his body. I'm going to use his bone marrow to light a lamp." On the Somnian continent, most citizens were not born naturally, but were nurtured in high-tech facilities. When these children were born, they were all given random names. Therefore, ordinary citizens on this miraculous continent didn't have distinct surnames. However, there was still a special group of people who reproduced the traditional way, children born from the natural union of a man and a woman. This autonomy wasn't something just anyone could enjoy. Only those with immense power, reaching level 5 or above, known as clearance holders, could possess it. These elites could freely seek out partners they admired, whether it be one person or many, to give birth to children with good genes. Lu Tian was one such lucky case. And Lu Cheng, the guy currently foaming at the mouth with rage, was Lu Tian's older half-brother. Lu Cheng wasn't here out of brotherly love, but because if someone dared to harm his younger brother today, tomorrow someone would dare to trample on the head of the founder of the Lu family. At this moment, someone in the group spoke up anxiously. "But I heard the Xingyao Hotel is the property of a high-ranking big shot in the Federation. If we just barge in looking for someone, will we offend someone we shouldn't?" Hearing this, Lu Cheng sneered disdainfully. "What's there to be afraid of? We're not here to cause trouble. Besides, with my status as a level 4 mental power user and my father, the captain of the 9th Combat Squad, backing me up, would a small branch hotel dare not give me face? Cut the crap. Everyone follow me inside to find him." With that, Lu Cheng took the lead and strode into the hotel. The people behind him echoed his command and marched into the Xingyao Hotel together. Seeing this scene, the receptionist wasn't afraid at all. She kept her bright smile and said, "Welcome. Where is Qin Shi?" Tell me his room number right now. Lu Cheng shouted loudly as soon as he entered the lobby. At the same time, he unscrupulously deployed his mental power to search for Qin Shi's location. But just as his mental power was about to scan the second floor, it was blocked by a much stronger wave of mental power. Dear guest, welcome to Xingyao. Along with a crisp chime, the elevator doors slowly opened. Qing Yun, having changed into comfortable clothes that accentuated her graceful figure, walked toward the crowd. Her voice was melodious and pleasant, seemingly carrying a magical power that could calm a person's mind. Just hearing that voice, Lu Cheng felt his tightly furrowed brows gradually relax. Who are you? Lu Cheng asked. I am the manager of the Xingyao Hotel. It's an honor to meet you. Qing Yun's smile was as radiant as a blooming spring flower, leaving Lu Cheng's lackeys stunned. They had never seen a woman with such a captivating smile, exuding an irresistible charm, yet making it hard to detect the slight hint of mockery hidden within. Lu Cheng said in a deep voice, You're the manager? Perfect timing. We need to find someone in your hotel. Please give us his room number. We promise not to disturb the other guests. Qing Yun replied gently, I'm so sorry. According to our rules, our hotel cannot disclose any guest's personal information to the outside. Lu Cheng sneered. He wasn't easily seduced by feminine beauty. He tilted his head slightly, glancing at a lackey behind him. The lackey immediately understood and stepped forward. Listen well. This is our captain. Not only does he possess powerful level 4 mental power, but he is also the precious son of the captain of the 9th Combat Squad. Lu Fanqiu. The lackey stood tall, declaring boldly to Qing Yun, his voice dripping with arrogance and threat. If you don't want to bring disaster upon yourselves, obediently hand Qin Shi over. Otherwise, you, the manager of this tiny hotel, won't be able to withstand our wrath. Hearing the introduction, a flash of surprise appeared in Qing Yun's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. So it's Lu Fanqiu's son. Qing Yun looked Lu Cheng up and down, her gaze carrying an indescribable meaning, absolutely devoid of the respect due to a guest. Lu Cheng grew angry. Well, are you going to hand Qin Shi over now, or what? The hotel has rules against disturbing our guests' rest. Qing Yun still replied with a smile. Lu Cheng's face grew even darker. He glared fiercely at Qing Yun. Fine, don't blame us for not being polite today. No matter what, I must see Qin Shi. Search the place. Before he even finished speaking, Lu Cheng waved his hand, signaling his subordinates to act. Seeing the aggressive crowd about to barge into the hotel to search, Qing Yun didn't flinch at all. She stepped forward, blocking their path. I want to remind you, no one who has ever caused trouble at the Xingyao Hotel has gotten away with it. Qing Yun's voice was ice-cold, devoid of any smile, exuding an unquestionable, imposing aura. The receptionists who were originally standing at the front desk had disappeared, replaced by a group of security guards in uniform, their expressions stern. Every single guard possessed level 3 mental power or higher. Lu Cheng looked at the level 3 guards with mockery. A bunch of level 3 trash dares to stop me? His level 4 mental power quickly swept toward the guards. At the same time, seeing their captain make a move, Lu Cheng's lackeys didn't hesitate to use their mental power either. On the Sanlian continent, most battles relied on mental power to determine the victor. Fighting with mental power was 100 times more dangerous than physical combat. A moment of carelessness and a mental attack could turn someone into an idiot. Especially when facing high-level cultivators, a higher mental power level would create an overwhelming advantage. Lu Cheng didn't think he would lose to a bunch of security guards, even if they had weapons. How could their trigger-pulling speed match the speed of his thoughts? But the moment Lu Cheng's mental power was released, a sharp, agonizing pain pierced his brain. Qing Yun had somehow appeared behind Lu Cheng, retracting the fist she had just thrown. The others didn't even see how their captain fell. Their offensive halted immediately. Everyone rushed toward Lu Cheng. Captain! Captain! But before they could take more than a few steps, Qing Yun knocked them to the ground, one punch at a time. The strength and speed Qing Yun used far exceeded the capabilities of an ordinary person. She was clearly in a state of unlocked genes. Qing Yun didn't strike to kill, she only knocked them unconscious. Right before her gene-unlocked state ended, she quickly instructed the guards, throw these people out. When they wake up, Tell them that if I wanted their lives, it would be easy. So tell them not to come causing trouble again." With that, she turned and left, quickly returning to her private elevator. When Qingyun stepped into the elevator and the doors closed, her previously calm and composed demeanor instantly turned into one of extreme agony. But she didn't cry out in pain. She just gritted her teeth, letting the elevator take her to the top floor. She had no idea that every single one of her actions had been taken in by Lin Shi from room 607. Lin Shi retracted his mental power. "Looks like I can get a good night's sleep tonight." The next day, right at dawn, Lin Shi stretched his muscles a bit, then enjoyed a lavish breakfast with the hotel's excellent service before heading downstairs to the front desk to check out. The receptionists had changed. They weren't the three girls who had greeted Lin Shi yesterday, but there was someone Lin Shi knew, or at least had met. It was the hotel manager from yesterday. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" Qingyun asked Lin Shi with a smile. That smile was just as gentle and beautiful as when she wasn't throwing punches last night. "Check out." Lin Shi handed over his room card. Qingyun glanced outside the hotel and said softly to Lin Shi, "Sir, our hotel guarantees your safety while you're inside. But once you leave, you'll have to protect yourself." Last night, after returning to the top floor, Qingyun had someone investigate the reason Lu Cheng and his gang came to cause trouble. The information she received was that Lu Cheng's younger brother, a level 3 evolutionary squad captain, had suddenly become an idiot. And the main culprit was staying in their hotel. It was Qin Shi. This made her even more curious about this guy who only had level 1 civilian clearance. After dealing with Lu Cheng and his gang last night, they woke up but didn't leave. Instead, they gathered outside the tavern, just not daring to come in again. The group muttered among themselves for a long time, and it wasn't until midnight that Lu Cheng finally left, leaving only a few lackeys to keep watch near the hotel. Those lackeys had kept watch all night and had even been beaten up by Qingyun. From their fierce glares, it wasn't hard to tell that they were blaming all their anger and the surprise attack from last night on Qin Shi. If Lin Shi checked out and went outside right now, he would definitely face the wrath of these people. Lin Shi naturally knew this too, but cowering in a hotel wasn't his style. Although he needed to take things slow, he didn't want to waste too much time. He asked, "Does your hotel have a shuttle service?" Qingyun's smile grew brighter. "We do. Since you are a VIP guest of our Supreme Suite, the hotel will provide a private shuttle and security. Please take a look at our service menu." 10 minutes later, Lin Shi casually strolled out of the hotel. Beside him was Qingyun, the hotel manager, personally seeing Lin Shi to the main entrance. The two of them got into a car bearing the hotel's logo. Lin Shi gave Chu Sen a sum of money and let him go. One of Lu Cheng's lookouts rubbed his eyes. "It's the target." He got in a car and left. "Tell the captain right now. It looks like that woman is with him too. Stop talking nonsense. Report to the captain later. Hurry up and hail a cab to follow them. Quick." Chu Sen had just been waiting at the hotel entrance for a bit. He received Lin Shi's money and was about to leave when he was blocked by Lu Cheng's men. Chu Sen still had no idea he was about to be dragged into the troubles of a big shot and quickly got into his car. The others quickly piled in and told Chu Sen, "Hurry, follow that car with the hotel logo." Chu Sen stepped on the gas and followed closely. After driving for a bit, he finally realized that this was the same car he had driven that big shot in yesterday. But seeing the fierce expressions of the men in his car, Chu Sen didn't dare stop to let them out, so he gritted his teeth and kept following. Lin Shi used his mental power to keep an eye on the car behind them, glancing over. Qingyun also noticed the car tailing them and said to Lin Shi, "Don't worry. You are currently our supreme VIP guest. I will guarantee your safety today until you return to the hotel. Even though I'm a woman, don't underestimate my strength. With you here, I'm not worried." Lin Shi was naturally at ease. The woman sitting next to him wasn't just a level 2 evolutionary, but also possessed level 5 mental power. Those guys behind them, even if more of them came, would just be serving themselves up on a silver platter. Last night, during the conflict, this woman hadn't even gone all out. Otherwise, those people would either be idiots or corpses by now. "Thank you for trusting me, sir. My name is Qingyun." Qingyun covered her mouth and laughed at Lin Shi's response, her beautiful smile radiant. If it were any normal man, he would definitely find a way to flatter Qingyun. But Lin Shi, a man who didn't understand romance, just gave a slight nod and left it at that. This actually made Qin Yun appreciate Lin Shi even more. It was precisely because Lin Shi's expression hadn't changed at all that Qin Yun decided to personally make this trip. If she had met the kind of men who acted all sleazy the moment they saw her, let alone accompanying them, giving them a good beating would already be Qin Yun being kind. The driver drove quietly, and the two didn't say anything else. The car drove through the quiet atmosphere all the way to the central area of the new 9th District. The car stopped in front of a building with a modern design, vastly different from the old buildings surrounding it, standing out like a crane among a flock of chickens. This is the Central District. Only ordinary people with mental power and regular soldiers are allowed here. To go further in, which is the restricted area, you need special permission from the district governor. Qin Yun patiently explained to Lin Shi, worried he might not know. Lin Shi nodded and opened the door to get out. Qin Yun also got out from the other side. The two stood in front of the Mental Power Testing Center, looking up at this unique building. This is the new 9th District's only mental power testing center. Compared to other districts, like the new 3rd District or the new 5th District, which have up to 3 centers, the new 9th District developed slower, so there are fewer. Qin Yun said, her voice carrying a hint of regret and melancholy. Seeing Lin Shi standing in front of the testing center without taking a step, Qin Yun thought he was nervous and explained in detail. Is this your first time here? Once inside, you just need to use your ID card, and someone will guide you to a testing room. There's a mental power measuring device in there to determine your level. Lin Shi wasn't nervous. He was just thinking about what level of mental power he should reveal to make it believable. Originally, he only planned to show level 3, but now he had some annoying pests on his tail. If he didn't want to kill them, he could only use his strength to intimidate them. Then, level 5 it is. As for the fact that Qin Shi was originally only level 1 and suddenly became level 5, that was easy to explain. Qin Shi had never had his mental power tested before. Having made up his mind, Lin Shi walked into the testing center. Just as Lin Shi and Qin Yun entered the center, Lu Cheng's subordinates also arrived in Chu San's car. On the way, they had contacted Lu Cheng. Hearing that Qin Yun, the woman who had defeated his subordinates last night, was with Lin Shi, Lu Cheng knew things were going south. He told his subordinates to keep tailing them, then immediately went to find his father, Lu Fengqiu, the commander of the 9th Combat Squad in the new 9th District. Shortly after, a luxury commercial vehicle drove out from the Lu family's residential area, heading straight for the Central District's Mental Power Testing Center. Lin Shi walked into the testing center, and a spacious, brightly lit hall greeted his eyes. At this moment, Center Director Su Feng was leisurely looking through some documents. When he caught a glimpse of Lin Shi, he didn't pay much attention, even looking a bit indifferent. But when Qin Yun walked in behind Lin Shi, Su Feng's eyes immediately changed. His eyes widened, and he quickly switched to a flattering, respectful demeanor. Welcome to the Mental Power Testing Center, you two. Are you here for a mental power test? Su Feng greeted them with a bright smile. Lin Shi gave a slight nod, indicating he wanted a test. Su Feng turned to look at Qin Yun. Qin Yun replied politely, I don't need a test. This gentleman is a guest of our hotel. Please assist him. Knowing that only Lin Shi needed a test, and seeing that Lin Shi and Qin Yun didn't seem to have any special relationship, Su Feng's attitude toward Lin Shi instantly cooled, though he maintained a polite social smile on the surface. He led Lin Shi to the counter and asked for his ID card to process the registration himself. You want to test for level 2, right? Su Feng looked at Lin Shi, his gaze lingering on the ID card for a moment before flashing a barely noticeable hint of disdain. The card clearly stated that Lin Shi was just a commoner with level 1 clearance. For an ordinary person like that, Su Feng naturally had no interest. His voice turned cold, as if saying one more word would be a waste of breath. In his eyes, someone like Lin Shi wasn't worthy of his warm reception. If it weren't out of respect for Qin Yun, he wouldn't even want to bother with this kind of person. Lin Shi didn't hesitate at all and opened his mouth to request, arrange a level 5 mental power test for me. The word struck Su Feng like a bolt of lightning. Huh. He stared at Lin Shi in disbelief, wondering if he had misheard. Then he looked down to check Qin Shi's file again. Seeing clearly that Qin Shi was just an ordinary person with level 1 clearance, Su Feng didn't know what to think, but his face showed blatant contempt and disgust. He reminded him, "You've never tested your mental power before, so you have to start from level 2. It sounded reasonable, but in reality, there was no such rule here. Su Feng said this entirely because he saw Lin Shi as just an ordinary person. For a nobody to demand a level 5 mental power test right off the bat made Su Feng think he was just trying to cause trouble and show off in front of the beautiful woman. Because of this, Su Feng's eyes were filled with disdain and contempt as he looked at Lin Shi. Lin Shi didn't understand any of this. He was about to listen to Su Feng and take the test step by step. But just as Lin Shi was about to agree, Qing Yun, who had been silent, suddenly spoke up. "Give him the level 5 mental power test." Her voice was gentle, but it carried an undeniable authority. Su Feng froze. He quickly hid his contempt and replied respectfully, "Yes, please follow me." Lin Shi looked at Qing Yun in slight surprise, then followed Su Feng to the testing room. "I'll wait for you here." Qing Yun gently waved at Lin Shi. Lin Shi followed Su Feng down a long corridor, stopping in front of a door with a giant number 5 on it. "This is the level 5 mental power testing room. Go inside, sit in the testing chair, and insert your ID card. Once your identity is successfully verified, release your mental power into the testing pillar. As long as you meet the standard, the testing pillar will light up. Once the test is over, you can take your ID card and leave. If the testing pillar doesn't light up within 10 minutes, the test is considered a failure. At that point, you must also come out. Be careful not to break anything in the room. You won't be able to bear the consequences." Even though Su Feng looked down on Lin Shi, he still gave detailed instructions. Lin Shi nodded. Seeing Lin Shi nod, Su Feng swiped his card at the door control panel. The door to the testing room opened, revealing a clean, pristine white interior. Lin Shi stepped inside, and the door automatically closed behind him. Lin Shi saw that there was only a single chair in the room. He sat down and immediately swiped his ID card on the tray on the armrest. 3 meters in front of him, a cylindrical pillar emerged from the ground. "Test starting. Please release your mental power." A mechanical female voice echoed in the room. Lin Shi tried releasing his mental power into the testing pillar. Since it was his first time, and he was afraid his mental power might be too strong and cause an accident, he only released a small amount to probe it. In the lobby of the mental power testing center, Su Feng respectfully poured a cup of hot water for Qing Yun while they waited for Lin Shi to finish his test. Qing Yun took the cup. The smartwatch on her wrist immediately beeped. Taking a sip, Qing Yun said to Su Feng, "Do you have a screen that can show what's happening inside the testing room? Turn it on for me. Just say the word, I'll turn it on for you." Su Feng had level 4 clearance, so he could directly view the testing status of anyone with a lower clearance. He was very respectful to Qing Yun because he was the one who had administered Qing Yun's successful level 5 mental power test. Every level of mental power was a massive leap. A young person with level 5 mental power held a much higher status than him, a mere level 4. Moreover, the other party was from Xingyao. Su Feng turned on the screen in the lobby. The status of most testing rooms was displayed as graphics on the large screen. Lin Shi had just entered the level 5 mental power testing room. A large number 5 appeared on the big screen, and below it was a bar chart showing the progress of Lin Shi's mental power probing into the testing device. "It's at level 2. Seeing Lin Shi's mental power status, Su Feng breathed a sigh of relief. He thought someone personally brought by Qing Yun for a level 5 test would be special, but who knew it was just a low-level nobody. He had wasted his time worrying about offending a big shot just now. Right at that moment, someone approached the door. Su Feng immediately looked toward the entrance. The doors of the testing center opened, and a group of people strode in with heavy steps. The man leading them was Lu Fangqiu, commander of the 9th Combat Squad. Seeing a familiar face, Su Feng put on his welcoming smile again. But seeing Lu Fangqiu bring so many people, he didn't understand what was going on and hurriedly asked, "Commander Lu, what brings you here personally?" Lu Fangqiu had been stuck at level 5 mental power for many years. Even though his squad was the weakest among the 10 combat squads, with Su Feng's status, he still didn't dare take any risks. Lu Fangqiu shot Su Feng a glance, ignoring him, and looked toward Qing Yun, who was sitting in a conspicuous spot in the lobby. Seeing Lu Fangqiu, the smile on Qing Yun's face vanished. She turned her head, not bothering to spare the old man another glance, and looked toward the screen displaying the test information. The two clearly knew each other, but it didn't seem to be on good terms. Lu Fanxiu looked at Su Feng again. I'm looking for Qin Shi. Did someone named Qin Shi come here just now? Bring him out to me. Qin Shi? Yes, there is someone by that name, but he's already entered the testing room. He's in, Su Feng said, turning his head and pointing at the screen to show Lu Fanxiu Qin Shi's testing room. But when he saw the indicator on the bar chart for room 5 on the screen, Su Feng's words caught in his throat. He was so stunned he couldn't speak. Testing room 5 had just displayed that the mental power result had reached level 5. Qin Shi. He actually reached level 5 mental power. A level 5 powerhouse. Hearing Su Feng stop mid-sentence, Lu Fanxiu was extremely displeased. Following Su Feng's pointing finger to the screen and seeing that someone in the mental power testing room had actually met the level 5 standard, Lu Fanxiu was startled. When did such a level 5 mental power powerhouse appear in the new 9th district? How could he not know? Lu Fanxiu racked his brains, but couldn't think of anyone he knew who could rival a level 5 mental power powerhouse. He could only look at Qin Yun. Could it be an acquaintance of this woman? Speaking of the relationship between Lu Fanxiu and Qin Yun, it started a few years ago when Qin Yun arrived in the new 9th district. At that time, Lu Fanxiu didn't know Qin Yun was from Xingyao. He only heard the city guard say a beautiful woman with level 4 mental power had arrived, and he got ideas. But Lu Fanxiu was old enough to be Qin Yun's father. How could Qin Yun be interested? Seeing that seduction didn't work, Lu Fanxiu planned to use force. He never expected the other party to be from the Xingyao Hotel. The result, of course, was Lu Fanxiu's failure. At the same time, Qin Yun's mental power advanced to level 5 in her second year. So Lu Fanxiu completely lost his chance and stopped paying attention to this woman. He never expected that yesterday, when his son barged into the Xingyao Hotel, he would be beaten and thrown out by Qin Yun. Lu Fanxiu's gaze toward Qin Yun flashed with hostility, but he quickly hid it. A young powerhouse of the same mental power level was someone the Lu family couldn't easily afford to offend right now. Not to mention, at this very moment, someone with level 5 mental power had appeared in the testing room. If this person was truly connected to Qin Yun, then from now on, he, Lu Fanxiu, would have to be wary of this woman. Having thought it through, Lu Fanxiu signaled the people behind him to stay calm, then walked over to Qin Yun and said with a smile, "Manager Qin Yun, it's been a few years. You're as elegant as ever." Qin Yun didn't reply. Her face was calm, but her eyes flickered with various strange emotions. Actually, from the very beginning, she didn't think Lin Shi could truly pass the level 5 mental power test. But seeing the confident look in his eyes and his aura at that time, Qin Yun had a premonition that maybe he could do it. That was why she had Su Feng take Lin Shi to the level 5 testing room. After Su Feng took him away, Qin Yun felt a bit unsure of her intuition. After all, how could an ordinary person jump from level 1 to level 5? Therefore, when Qin Yun witnessed Lin Shi successfully pass the level 5 mental power test, even she was a bit surprised. Seeing Qin Yun ignore him, Lu Fanxiu assumed she still held a grudge. A hint of anxiety flashed in his eyes, but he quickly concealed it and continued, "I wonder if the guest in room 5 is a friend of yours, Manager Qin Yun?" Qin Yun finally turned to look at Lu Fanxiu, her gaze carrying a half-smile. "Commander Lu should also know the guest in room 5. I know him." Lu Fanxiu once again racked his brain for acquaintances who had been stuck at level 4 for years, but still couldn't guess who it was. "I wonder which senior it is. Could Manager Qin Yun tell me?" "Senior? Heh." Qin Yun chuckled softly, looking amused and unwilling to reveal the answer. She simply said, "You'll know in a moment." Lu Fanxiu frowned. At this time, Lin Shi had already come out of the mental power testing room and was walking down the corridor. Lu Cheng and his subordinates were waiting outside. Seeing Lin Shi approaching the end of the corridor, they immediately alerted Lu Fanxiu. "That's him. He's the one who harmed Xiao Tian. Commander, it's that brat Qin Shi." As soon as they saw Lin Shi, the people accompanying Lu Fanxiu got worked up, especially those who had been beaten by Qin Yun yesterday and had stood guard outside the tavern all night. Their eyes glared at Lin Shi as if they wanted to spit fire. Lu Fanxiu also looked toward the end of the corridor. Seeing Lin Shi walk out calmly and stop in front of everyone, and recognizing the face of Qin Shi he had seen on the basic news, Lu Fanchio's expression instantly turned incredibly cold. He narrowed his eyes at Lin Shi and said, "So you're the one who reduced my son to that state. You even stole the desolate crystal. Did you think your status as a level 2 mental power user could keep that crystal safe?" At this moment, Lu Fanchio and his subordinates still hadn't realized that Lin Shi was the one who had just come out of the level 5 mental power testing room. Lu Fanchio only knew through Yi Wang and Ryu from Lu Cheng's squad that Qin Shi was already a level 2 mental power user. Therefore, Lu Fanchio assumed Lin Shi was here to certify his level 2 mental power. As for Lu Cheng becoming an idiot, after reviewing the surveillance footage, Lu Fanchio didn't believe Lu Cheng suffered a mental backlash from a level 2 mental power user. It was probably because Lu Cheng himself was clumsy in using his mental power, leading to a mistake during his attack. Such cases weren't rare on the Somnian continent. After all, Qin Shi's file clearly recorded everything from his birth in the nurturing facility to his adulthood. How could a commoner reduce his son to such a state? But to say Lu Fanchio would just let Lin Shi go was impossible. The Lu family had lost face, and he had to get it back. A mere commoner dared to covet a desolate crystal and inadvertently caused his son to become an idiot. Lu Fanchio absolutely could not swallow this anger. "Who are you?" Lin Shi had already guessed who these people were, but he asked anyway. Lu Fanchio sneered. "You don't even recognize me? You, a logistics worker in the squad, stole the squad's desolate crystal and killed the captain. Now I, in my capacity as the commander of the 9th Combat Squad, am arresting you, Qin Shi. Come with me." The others also sneered at Lin Shi. With the commander personally taking action, a lowly logistics worker could hardly escape. But Lin Shi wasn't flustered as they expected. Instead, he said calmly, "You say I stole the desolate crystal and killed the captain. What proof do you have?" "Proof? We'll talk about proof when we get to the Federation police station." Lu Fanchio signaled his subordinates to prepare to arrest Lin Shi. But right at that moment, Qin Yun stepped up beside Lin Shi, pushed the men away, and looked at Lu Fanchio. "Commander Lu, even if you are the commander of our district's combat squad, you still need evidence to arrest someone, right? Arresting and imprisoning someone without cause. Did your family write the Federation's laws?" Lu Fanchio didn't expect Qin Yun to stand up for a commoner. Thinking she was still seeking revenge, he said coldly, "Humph. Manager Qin Yun, don't put such a big hat on me. You want evidence? I'll give you evidence." Lu Fanchio pointed at Lin Shi and angrily questioned. This brat's ID card suddenly gained 1 million Federation credits and 100 Federation contribution points. That was exchanged from a desolate crystal. He's just a logistics worker. He used to be just a low-level mental power user. If he didn't steal the squad's desolate crystal, how could he have killed a desolate beast all by himself? Qin Yun asked in return. A level 1 mental power user? A mere level 1 mental power user came here to test his level. I heard he got lucky a few days ago and broke through to level 2. But how could a level 2 mental power user, out in the wilderness alone without teammates to coordinate with, kill a desolate beast? Am I wrong to say he stole the desolate crystal? Lu Fanchio still hadn't realized the problem. Qin Yun gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and smiled naturally. But he is clearly a level 5 mental power user. As soon as Qin Yun finished speaking, the entire lobby of the mental power testing center fell dead silent. Lu Cheng and Lu Fanchio's subordinates all stared in disbelief. How is that possible? In their eyes, Qin Shi was just an ordinary person. How could he be a level 5 mental power user? This possibility was like randomly pointing at a beggar on the street and finding out he was a disguised billionaire. But was this even possible? Lu Fanchio was the first to react. He said angrily, "What nonsense are you spouting? How could he possibly be a level 5 mental power user?" But he was just in the level 5 mental power testing room. If you don't believe me, ask him. Qin Yun pointed at Su Feng, who was standing dumbfounded in the lobby. Lu Fanchio immediately asked Su Feng, "Is she telling the truth?" Su Feng nodded hastily. He couldn't possibly lie about this. The screen clearly showed that the person who had just entered the level 5 mental power testing room had passed the level 5 certification. Lu Fanchio turned pale, his expression incredibly ugly. Lu Qing also realized it. He really is level 5. Xiao Tian really suffered a backlash from his mental power. Lu Cheng was only a level 3 mental power user. If a level 3 attacked a level 5, what else would happen besides a backlash? Qing Yun was very satisfied with the expression on Lu Fanchio's face. She laughed and said, "Haha, Commander Lu, are you still going to say he couldn't kill a desolate beast by himself?" Lu Fanchio's face was gloomy, especially when he saw Qing Yun laughing so gleefully. It felt like a slap to the face. He glared at Lin Shi and quickly said, "I need to investigate this matter further. Since there's no direct evidence right now, I'll spare your life for the time being. Let's go." The group came fast and left fast. The lobby quickly returned to its previous quiet state. Lin Shi frowned. He hadn't even said anything, and the chase scene was already over. So the status of a level 5 mental power user had such an effect. Lin Shi gained a new understanding of the importance of mental power levels. Qing Yin turned back to look at Lin Shi and teased, "I helped you solve a big problem. Don't you want to thank me?" "Thank you," Lin Shi said. At this moment, a new notification popped up on his ID card. Qin Shi, male, 21 years old. Level 5 mental power user. Occupation, squad logistics. After resolving the trouble behind him and the matter of his mental power level, Lin Shi had to go buy an optical computer. He might as well get it done today, since the store selling optical computers was in the central district. Lin Shi and Qing Yun left the mental power testing center, got into the hotel's car, and headed straight for the optical computer store. He spent 300,000 Federation credits to buy a basic optical computer. Upon returning to the hotel, Lin Shi began familiarizing himself with how to use it and luckily managed to buy a spaceship ticket to the new 7th District. The earliest flight to the new 7th District was in 2 days. For these 2 days, Lin Shi continued to stay at the hotel. When the time came, he would take the hotel's car straight to the spaceship landing pad. Since he had upgraded to the Supreme Suite, Lin Shi comfortably enjoyed the luxurious life of a rich man. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the Lu family was incredibly heavy. Bang! Lu Fanchio felt he had never suffered such humiliation in his entire life. His anger boiled over. Upon returning home, he grew even more furious, pointing angrily at Lu Cheng and shouting, "Hurry up and call all those useless trashes from Lu Tian's squad here right now." Not long after, Ruoyu, Yi Wang, and a few others were brought in by Lu Cheng. "They're all here." Being summoned so suddenly by the commander, these people couldn't help but feel anxious, especially seeing Lu Fanchio's furious expression. "You all, tell me what you know about Qin Shi." "One by one. Start with you." Lu Fanchio pointed at the only woman in the squad, which was Ruoyu. She was the one who knew Qin Shi best in the squad, as the two had been together for many years. Ruoyu didn't dare lie and recounted everything she knew about Qin Shi. But Lu Fanchio's frown deepened. He realized that the Qin Shi Ruoyu was talking about was completely different from the Qin Shi he knew. Seeing Lu Fanchio frown, Ruoyu grew even more anxious and hurriedly said, "But recently, I feel like Qin Shi has become a completely different person." "No, not recently, but ever since we encountered that pack of desolate beasts and abandoned him. When we met again, I saw that he had changed." "Changed how?" Lu Fanchio's gaze sharpened. Ruoyu thought for a moment and said, "I feel like he suddenly doesn't love me anymore." "Get lost. Next, your turn." The others took turns recounting what they knew about Qin Shi, but the content was mostly the same as Ruoyu's, with little difference. It was Yi Wang's turn, but he was nervous. At this moment, Yi Wang didn't know Qin Shi had level 5 mental power, but he knew Lu Fanchio had called them here because of Lu Tian, their captain. Lu Tian had suffered severe mental trauma and become an idiot. If Yi Wang hadn't falsely accused Qin Shi of possessing a desolate crystal, Lu Tian wouldn't have clashed with Qin Shi, and things wouldn't have ended up like this. Right now, the most anxious person was Yi Wang. If he hadn't badmouthed Qin Shi about the desolate crystal, leading to Lu Tian's conflict with Qin Shi, the subsequent events wouldn't have happened. In front of Lu Fanchio, Yi Wang's eyes darted around, not daring to look him in the eye. He just awkwardly recounted Qin Shi's situation. Unfortunately, Yi Wang forgot one thing. In front of a high-level mental power user, any lie was hard to hide. Lu Fanchio narrowed his eyes, staring intently at Yi Wang, and asked slowly, "What are you hiding?" "Commander, I really haven't." Yi Wang hurriedly waved his hands in denial, his forehead already sweating from tension. Then let's see if you can withstand an interrogation. Lu Fanchio's voice was ice-cold. Men, take him down and extract a confession. Commander, I didn't. Yi Wang still tried to struggle. Lu Fanchio was already in a bad mood. Seeing Yi Wang still stubbornly denying it, he didn't give him a chance to explain and ordered him locked up. Soon, everyone heard Yi Wang's agonizing screams. Ryu and the others, who were already anxious, were now even more terrified. Ryu was so scared her legs turned to jelly. Seeing Lu Fanchio looking at her, Ryu hurriedly said, Commander, I'm sorry. It was all Yi Wang who told me to do it. He didn't like Qin Shi and told me to falsely accuse Qin Shi of hiding the desolate crystal so the captain wouldn't let him off. I didn't expect it would harm the captain. I didn't know. Ryu cried as she spoke, her makeup smearing. Seeing the terrifying aura suddenly erupt from Lu Fanchio, he looked at Ryu and said, Then do you know who it is you tried to frame? Qin Shi is a level 5 mental power user. Ryu was already terrified, but when she heard Qin Shi was a level 5 mental power user, her face changed as if she had seen a ghost. She retorted loudly, Qin Shi is a level 5 mental power user? Impossible. How could he be a level 5 mental power user? The other squad members also stared in disbelief. Qin Shi is a level 5 mental power user? How could that trash whose wife was stolen by Yi Wang be a level 5 mental power user? Would I lie to you? If he wasn't a level 5 mental power user, why would Lu Tian suffer a mental backlash when attacking him? Lu Fanchio gritted his teeth. Because these two damn fools framed Qin Shi, Lu Fanchio not only lost his son, but also offended a young level 5 mental power user. He wished he could grind these two into dust. Ryu kept shaking her head. Impossible. How could it be? How could he be a level 5 mental power user? Ryu stared wide-eyed, her mouth agape. Suddenly, Ryu remembered the time they encountered the pack of desolate beasts and then ran into Qin Shi again. At that time, a desolate beast was chasing them, and then it suddenly died for no apparent reason. Ryu had thought Yi Wang arrived later and killed it, but Yi Wang said it wasn't him. So, that desolate beast was killed by Qin Shi. And when Qin Shi dug into the beast's head looking for a desolate crystal, she had stopped him, saying he shouldn't dig into someone else's kill. It turned out, from that moment on, Qin Shi had already shown his true strength. It was ridiculous that she still thought Qin Shi was a country bumpkin and that she had to suffer with him, which was why she went with Yi Wang. Such a powerful person. If she had known earlier, she absolutely wouldn't have had anything to do with Yi Wang. Ryu suddenly understood. No wonder during that beast attack, all the other logistics workers died, and only Qin Shi survived. It turned out it wasn't because Qin Shi was lucky, but because with his strength, he didn't even need to run. It turned out that all these years, Qin Shi staying by her side with an ordinary facade was all an act. He must have been testing her. And yet she went with Yi Wang and even wanted to frame him. It had to be said, Ryu's imagination was very rich. She instantly imagined the reason for Qin Shi's later coldness toward her. Why didn't he tell me? Why didn't he tell me? Ryu was so filled with regret that her guts twisted, and she collapsed helplessly to the ground. Lu Tianxiu didn't want to witness their regret. He waved his hand, ordering the men behind him, drag them all down. Break one of each of their legs and throw them into the wasteland. They are not allowed to return. Breaking their legs and throwing them into the wasteland was essentially a direct death sentence for them. The group trembled in fear. They desperately begged for mercy. Commander, Commander, we were all deceived by Yi Wang and Ryu. We didn't know anything. Commander, that's right, Commander. Commander, spare our lives. Spare our lives, Commander. We can't survive in the wasteland. Turning a deaf ear to their pleas for mercy. Both Ryu and Yi Wang were thrown into the new 9th District's development zone that very day. A group of people who could barely walk and didn't bring any supplies. In the wasteland, even if they didn't encounter wild beasts, they wouldn't survive without finding food and water. There was no place for them in the new 9th District unless they crossed the wasteland to another liberated district. But with the level 2 strength of this group, and with only one good leg, it was impossible for them to cross the wasteland to reach another liberated district. Now that we've offended Qin Shi, what should we do next? After Ryu and the others were dragged away, Lu Cheng looked fearfully at his father's gloomy face, Lu Tianshou, and asked softly. Lu Tianshou tapped lightly on the table, stayed silent for a moment, and then said with a serious expression, "Prepare a generous gift. You will personally go to his place and present it to apologize." What? Lu Cheng was shocked and confused. We haven't even taken any concrete action yet. Presenting gifts to apologize. It's to prevent him from still holding a grudge, Lu Tianshou explained. But what about Xiao Tian's matter? Are we just going to let it go? Lu Cheng was still unwilling to accept it. For now, of course, we can only let it go. If that brat's strength is not inferior to mine, Xiao Tian offending him and dying would be what he deserves. Lu Tianshou's voice was cold, his face extremely ugly. Then in the future, Lu Cheng heard the hidden meaning in Lu Tianshou's words. Lu Tianshou stood up. I'm going to see the district governor. Hasn't the governor been suspecting suspicious personnel in the inner city recently? It's time to purge the suspicious personnel in the inner city. Someone who was clearly level 1 suddenly became level 5. Isn't that suspicious? Lu Cheng's eyes lit up. Do what I told you right away. Remember, you must make him think we won't do anything against him anymore. After fully enjoying the services of the Hotel Supreme Suite, the next morning, Lin Shi was informed by the staff that someone was looking for him in the lobby and was told to wait. Lin Shi leisurely took a shower, ate a little something, and then unhurriedly took the elevator down. By this time, Lu Cheng had been waiting in the hotel lobby for an hour. Seeing Lin Shi stroll down leisurely, Lu Cheng's anger boiled, but he still forced a smile on his face. He stood up, reached out his hand, and said to Lin Shi, "Hello, I am Lu Cheng. We met yesterday. What is it?" Lin Shi sat down opposite Lu Cheng, having no intention of shaking his hand. Lu Cheng's hand paused in midair for a second before he awkwardly pulled it back. "It's like this. I'm here on behalf of my younger brother, Lu Tian, to apologize to you, and also to apologize for my actions over the past 2 days." Lu Cheng pulled out a card from his pocket. This is an anonymous Federation card. It contains 2 million Federation credits, which can be transferred directly to your account. The password is 6 sixes. This is my sincere gesture. Please accept it. Lu Cheng pushed the card toward Lin Shi. Lin Shi glanced at the card, not bothering to reach for it. He was very sensitive to the malice of others. Even before becoming an evolutionary, he was already very sharp at sensing the good and evil intentions of others, let alone now that his mental power had reached level 9. Although Lu Cheng sitting opposite him was smiling, and the smile was very humble, Lin Shi could still feel the malice radiating from him. 2 million? Are you dismissing a beggar? Lin Shi stopped pretending and said disdainfully. As long as Lin Shi wanted to, he could go out into the wilderness, kill a few desolate beasts, and sell their desolate crystals for more than 2 million. Why would he need this little bit of money? Actually, 2 million Federation credits wasn't a small amount. Normally, 1 desolate crystal could be exchanged for 1 million Federation credits. Ordinary mental power users who wanted to hunt desolate beasts had to coordinate with a small team, mobilize logistics personnel, bring enough supplies and equipment, and under the condition of not encountering a beast pack, work together to kill a lone desolate beast. Not to mention the chances of encountering a lone desolate beast were very low. Just the combat power of a desolate beast was terrifying. In a head-on clash, the frail bodies of ordinary people were simply no match for a desolate beast, making it incredibly dangerous. And even hunting under such dangerous conditions, the drop rate of desolate crystals was very low. They could only skin the beasts and bring the materials back to exchange for Federation credits, splitting the profits among the team members. In the end, they wouldn't get much. If they were lucky enough to harvest a desolate crystal, divided equally among everyone, each person would only get 1 or 200,000 Federation credits. As for level 5 mental power users like Lu Tian, they rarely set foot in the wilderness to hunt themselves, usually leaving it to their own troops or others to hunt. Because even a level 5 mental power user in the wilderness could only look for lone desolate beasts or a small number of low-level beasts to hunt. If they encountered high-level desolate beasts, their speed and strength would reach terrifying levels. Even if an ordinary person's body had higher mental power, it would be hard to clearly see the opponent's attack trajectory, let alone kill them. If they encountered 2 or more high-level desolate beasts, it would be a certain death situation. Therefore, it wasn't easy for mental power users to make money either. It was only simple for Lin Shi alone. This is just a small part of the Liu family's sincerity. Liu Cheng's eyelids twitched slightly as he tried to maintain his smile. In addition, I've also prepared a villa near the central district. This is to apologize for ruining your inn that day. I don't need it. Lin Shi looked at Liu Cheng with contempt. He shook his head. Looks like your Liu family isn't doing too well either. You could only scrape together 2 million. TSK, Lin Shi mocked, his attitude completely dismissive. The smile on Liu Cheng's face gradually faded. He began to suspect that Lin Shi truly had a profound background, to the point where he didn't even care about 2 million Federation credits. Originally, he thought Qin Shi was still living in an inn and didn't have much money in his bank account, so 2 million should be a huge sum. He didn't expect to be flatly rejected and even humiliated. Liu Cheng didn't dare get angry, because the purpose of this trip was to stabilize the other party. He could only say awkwardly, I didn't prepare much, but I truly came with sincerity. I hope you can overlook my previous offenses. I won't get angry over such a small matter. If someone truly provokes me, I won't give him a chance to offend me a second time. Every word Lin Shi spoke was full of authority. He had already made it this clear. If the other party still secretly plotted against him, they would be courting death. Sitting opposite Lin Shi, Liu Cheng felt like he was sitting on pins and needles, feeling as if all his calculations had been seen through by the other party. Naturally, Liu Cheng apologized profusely again before standing up to take his leave, leaving the card on the table. Lin Shi used his mental power to track Liu Cheng leaving the hotel. Seeing him enter the central district and disappear, he figured no matter what schemes the other party had, he would be leaving the new 9th district tomorrow anyway. The commander of the 9th Combat Squad couldn't possibly chase him all the way to the new 7th district to fight him. Lin Shi picked up the card on the table, intending to return to his room to figure out how to activate it. But before he could get on the elevator, he was stopped by someone. It was Qin Yun. She had been standing behind the lobby doors just now, using her mental power to observe the conversation between Lin Shi and Liu Cheng. Can I talk to you for a moment, Qin Shi? Lin Shi looked at this elegant woman. What is it? It's not convenient to talk here. Come to my place. Qin Yun waved her hand, gesturing toward the private elevator leading to the top floor. Lin Shi thought for a moment and followed her. The elevator went straight to the 88th floor. Because the hotel was equipped with a mental power warning system, this was an area Lin Shi couldn't probe with his mental power. The elevator doors opened, revealing a spacious room, simply but luxuriously decorated. Qin Yun casually sat down on the sofa, motioned for Lin Shi to sit, and said, Are you planning to leave tomorrow? Lin Shi looked straight into her eyes. With her level 5 clearance, she had no intention of checking out. Theoretically, Qin Yun only had level 5 clearance and shouldn't be able to find out that he wanted to buy a ticket to leave the new 9th district. What are you thinking? My clearance is level 5. How would I know you want to leave tomorrow? Qin Yun seemed to know what Lin Shi was thinking. Without waiting for him to answer, she continued, I naturally have my own methods. Don't be upset. Information clearance isn't absolute. There are always some people who can bypass the rules. Qin Yun carefully observed Lin Shi's expression. Ordinary people hearing these words would usually be very angry. It was the helplessness of being unable to break the rules, only able to struggle within them, leading to resentment. But Lin Shi didn't show any annoyance. He replied calmly, So you're telling me that your identity isn't just a simple hotel manager. In fact, the towering authority behind you is very powerful. You're very smart. I like talking to smart people. Qin Yun smiled. She realized she could always see things in this man that she couldn't see in others. This made her even more interested in Lin Shi. This feeling was like someone walking along a riverbank and finding a uniquely colored and shaped stone among a pile of gravel. Even if it was just an ordinary stone, it was enough to catch the eye. Qin Yun said sincerely, There are no listening devices on this floor, and there's a signal jammer. No device can eavesdrop on us, not even your optical computer. I'll be frank with you. I want to invite you to join us. You can make any request, and as long as it's not too outrageous, I'll try my best to fulfill it. Lin Shi glanced at the optical computer on his wrist. Sure enough, the signal was gone. Any request? If I want a bomb powerful enough to destroy an entire district, can you give me that too? Lin Shi asked. Lin Shi was very clear-headed. He absolutely would not join any faction. According to the information provided by Ji Shui, the current situation on the Sanlian continent was quite complex. Besides the Federation General Bureau, which was the strongest faction, there were also many large and small families and factions established by the governors of the newly liberated districts. Currently, except for the new 1st District and the new 2nd District, the newly liberated districts were basically autonomous. Although on the surface they still obeyed the orders of the Federation General Bureau, in reality, they were secretly expanding their armies and developing in their own ways. What was noteworthy was that the governors of these newly liberated districts seemed to be intentionally or unintentionally allying with each other, forming a force to oppose the Federation General Bureau. As for the true faction behind the Xingyao Hotel, even Ji Shui didn't know. She only said it was a mysterious faction. Some people thought Xingyao was secretly established by the director of the Federation General Bureau to monitor the newly liberated districts. Others said it was built by the Minister of Finance using embezzled funds. In short, there were all sorts of speculations. Lin Shi, a tourist from another world, had no intention of participating in the struggles of these factions. His goal was very clear: find explosives, find the spatial passage, and then destroy it. At most, he would figure out the relationships between these factions and ideally find multiple ways to obtain the powerful explosives he needed. Qing Yun chuckled at Lin Shi's request. She thought he was joking. As long as you accumulate enough contribution points in the organization, it's not impossible to get that kind of explosive. Lin Shi was very interested in the organization Qing Yun mentioned. What kind of organization are you guys? You'll know once you join. Qing Yun wouldn't reveal information that easily. If I pretend to join and then back out after finding out what faction you are, is that okay? Lin Shi asked. If the other party could truly provide the explosives he needed, pretending to join wasn't out of the question. Qing Yun smiled faintly. We naturally have ways to control our people. You just need to say whether you're willing to join or not. Tell me first, what do I have to do to join? Lin Shi asked cautiously. It seems you're very careful. I'll be straight with you. If you join, we will implant a parasitic seed in you. What is a parasitic seed? Lin Shi had never heard of it. I don't blame you for not knowing. This species disappeared from the history of the Sanlian continent a long time ago. Only our organization still preserves it. Qing Yun continued. A parasitic seed is an ancient parasitic organism, similar to a parasite. It is nurtured by mental power and certain special substances and can be implanted into the human brain. The infected person must take medication periodically to pacify it. Otherwise, the parasitic seed will continuously grow in the brain, eventually devouring it and turning the person into a mindless puppet. If not removed, it will pass down through generations like a gene. At the same time, the parasitic seed cannot be extracted by external force. Once it senses danger, it will immediately devour the brain. Even the best surgeon in the world would be helpless against it. The method of cultivating parasites has been lost on the Tri-Union continent, but our organization still preserves it. Well, scared yet? Qing Yun explained unhurriedly. Hearing the characteristics of the parasite, Lin Shi felt a massive wave of shock wash over him. Because Lin Shi realized that the parasite Qing Yun mentioned was the exact same black substance he had found in Lin Rongshuan's brain. Lin Shi finally understood the origin of the black substance in his own head. Someone had implanted the parasite into the Lin family's ancestors, and it was passed down to future generations. So who exactly implanted the parasite into the Lin ancestors' brain? Was it the old Taoist? No, that's not right. At that time, the old Taoist was imprisoned on the cliff by the will of the Blue Planet. Perhaps it was much earlier, when humans were exiled to the Blue Planet, that someone was implanted with the parasite. It then multiplied, causing this terrifying creature to be passed down through generations. If I'm parasitized, doesn't that mean I have to do whatever you want me to do? Otherwise, I'd wish I were dead. Lin Shi tried to maintain a calm facade. Humph. Scared now? Relax. As long as you take the medicine regularly, the parasite won't have any side effects. In fact, it will even accelerate the growth of your spiritual power. Even I have a parasite inside me. It's a method of control, but also a shortcut to becoming stronger. Normally, People with low-level spiritual power aren't worth wasting a parasite on. But you're different. You're a genius. Reaching level 5 spiritual power at 21 makes you worthy of the organization's investment and cultivation. Furthermore, listen to the conditions the organization is offering, Qing Yun said slowly. So what are these conditions? If one day I want to leave, what do I need to do? Lin Shi asked. Qing Yun wasn't afraid of Lin Shi asking questions. She was only afraid he wouldn't ask, which would mean he had no interest in joining. She replied, as long as you agree to join, every year, even without taking on any missions, you'll receive 5 million Federation credits for living expenses. You get that 5 million for doing absolutely nothing. If you do take on missions, you'll earn wages and contribution points from the organization. Contribution points can be exchanged for anything you need within the organization, including receptacles, weapons, supplies, and even positions within the Federation. What's more, as long as you officially join, I will request my superiors to custom make a mid-grade receptacle just for you. Well, are you satisfied with these terms? Qing Yun had fought hard for these conditions, even using her own personal allowance. If you understand the market, you'd know that a low-grade receptacle is fiercely fought over anywhere, let alone a mid-grade one. There are no more than 100 of these items in the entire Federation. They rarely fall into the hands of ordinary people. You're a level 5 spiritual power user. With a mid-grade receptacle, your success rate in hunting high-level wild beasts in the wilderness will increase significantly, and your self-defense capabilities will also be greatly enhanced. The Federation seems peaceful on the surface, but undercurrents are surging. Ordinary people can live in peace because they are ignorant. But people like us, who know a little about the Federation's internal situation, all know that to survive, we must improve our strength. Over the past few decades, wild beasts in the wilderness have been increasing, and they are forming packs more frequently. Last time, the beast horde devastated half of the 10 sectors of the Tri-Union continent. It's very likely to happen again. If it weren't for her desire to leave this stormy new 9th sector, Qing Yun absolutely wouldn't have tried so hard to recruit someone. You haven't mentioned leaving. If I leave, what happens to the parasite in my brain? Lin Shi pressed. Qing Yun paused for a moment, then said, if you want to leave, you must refund all the Federation credits the organization provided you annually and accumulate 10,000 contribution points. The organization will then give you a parasite-killing drug. Once you take it, the parasite in your brain will be destroyed. Qing Yun didn't mention that since the organization's founding, no one had ever left. 10,000 contribution points might not sound like much, but only those in the organization knew how impossibly difficult it actually was. A level 1 wild beast core can only be exchanged for 10 contribution points. 300 contribution points can get you a mid-grade receptacle. Within the organization, accumulating 1,000 contribution points is already considered incredibly strong. As for accumulating 10,000 points, in Qing Yun's memory, no one has ever achieved it. As for the parasite-killing drug, Qing Yun didn't even know if anyone had ever obtained it, or if it could truly kill the parasite. She knew someone had once sought out the best surgeon on the Tri-Union continent to surgically remove the parasite. The result was that the person died on the operating table, and even the doctor was infected by the parasite. Qing Yun naturally wouldn't tell Lin Shi any of this. Qing Yun didn't know that ordinary people truly couldn't remove the parasite from their bodies. But on the blue planet, thanks to the extreme speed of high-level evolvers combined with Lin Siyuan's godlike healing abilities, completely removing the parasite became possible. The parasites in Lin Rongshuan and Lin Siyuan had already been removed by Lin Shi. Even the parasite in Lin Shi's brain was successfully surgically removed when Lin Siyuan reached level 7, with the assistance of Qi Yun. The parasite in Lin Shi's brain, just like Lin Siyuan's, hadn't spread yet, so there was no need to excise and reconstruct the entire brain like they had to do for Lin Rongshuan initially. The speed that ordinary people, even the best surgeons, couldn't achieve was no problem at all for a level 7 evolver. A level 7 evolver could excise the parasite before it even had time to react. Hearing Qing Yun's words, Lin Shi guessed that the conditions to leave the organization were definitely not easy to meet. But he didn't say it outright. He merely feigned curiosity about the organization she mentioned. So, have you considered joining us? Seeing Lin Shi stay silent, Qing Yun asked again. Lin Shi thought for a moment, and didn't completely reject her. Give me some more time to think about it. If he couldn't find powerful enough explosives, Linsher didn't rule out the possibility of cooperating with the organization Qingyun mentioned, but not joining them. Linsher's non-committal answer made Qingyun a little anxious. She could hear the evasiveness in Linsher's words. Having been assigned to the new 9th sector for 6 years, and with the situation both inside and outside the Federation currently very unstable, she didn't want to stay here anymore. In this border region, if a real crisis occurred, they would very likely be abandoned or sacrificed first. To return to Sector 3 or higher, she needed to accumulate enough contribution points. Right now, nothing could help her earn points faster than recruiting a level 5 spiritual power genius for the organization. Therefore, in her impatience, Qingyun couldn't help but use the support ability of her receptacle. Qingyun pulled down one side of her fabric strap, revealing her fair shoulder. Looking at Linsher seductively, she said softly, "Do you think I'm beautiful?" Spiritual mind control. Linsher was slightly taken aback. Seeing his expression change, Qingyun rejoiced inwardly, thinking she had succeeded. But just a second later, the expression of the man in front of her blurred in her eyes, and her brain began to slow down. "What is the organization's name?" Qingyun heard him ask, and she answered without hesitation. A second later, Qingyun was engulfed by a terrifying sense of dread. She snapped out of her trance. "You used a spiritual ability on me. You have a spiritual type receptacle?" Qingyun hastily jumped up from the sofa, her beautiful eyes glaring at Linsher. Qingyun knew that deciding to use spiritual mind control was extremely risky. Her mind control ability could only dominate those with a lower spiritual power level. She had never tried it on someone of the same level. If she failed and the target noticed, she would very likely be attacked immediately. But in her desperation, Qingyun figured that even if they were both level 5, there would still be a gap. Her spiritual power had reached level 5 5 years ago, while the other party had just passed the level 5 test and had likely only broken through recently. Even if she didn't succeed, it shouldn't be a big deal. If she were facing an ordinary spiritual power user, Qingyun's assumption wouldn't be wrong. Unfortunately, she was facing Linsher. Linsher was a Tier 9 spiritual power user. His spiritual power was so overwhelmingly strong that Qingyun couldn't possibly control him. As long as the cornucopia existed, even if Linsher were only Tier 1, Qingyun still wouldn't be able to control him. Therefore, when he sensed Qingyun trying to control him, Linsher immediately counterattacked with hypnosis. Unfortunately, after just one question, Qingyun snapped out of it. People who possessed spiritual type receptacles usually had immunity to spiritual abilities. It was just like before, when he remembered trying to hypnotize Xia-chan. "You also have a receptacle." Tit for tat. Linsher remained calm and composed. "You know our organization's name, but refuse to join. I could report you to the organization at any time and have our high-level spiritual power users kill you." Qingyun's heart pounded wildly, her face losing its initial confident composure. She hadn't expected Linsher to not only be completely immune to her spiritual ability, but also capable of hypnotizing her in return. If she hadn't been a core member of the organization with a secret program installed in her receptacle, she would be dead already. Linsher smiled. His formidable spiritual power surged out like a waterfall. Feeling Linsher's spiritual power, Qingyun's eyes widened, staring at him in disbelief. "You're not a Tier 5 spiritual power user. Who exactly are you?" Qingyun quietly took a step back and to the left. Linsher's terrifying aura poured over her like a bucket of ice water. "If you move even an inch further back and to the left, I'll kill you right now." Behind the sofa on the left was a very discreet device. Linsher didn't know what it was, but he absolutely couldn't let Qingyun touch it right now. Qingyun instantly froze, not daring to move a muscle. She had never felt such terrifying killing intent from anyone before. This was the killing intent, accumulated after slaughtering countless living beings. She had no doubt that Linsher would kill her. "Your receptacle. Hand it over." Linsher held out his hand. Qingyun reluctantly reached into her clothes and took out her bra. Linsher frowned as he took the soft undergarment. Through it, she unfastened a delicate little object from inside. That was Qingyun's receptacle. Linsher threw the bra back at her. Qingyun caught the thrown bra, unable to put it on but unable to leave it off. She covered her chest, feeling both ashamed and furious. then looked at Lin Shi with pitiful eyes. You already have my most important thing. Can you let me go? Lin Shi wasn't fooled. He said, don't play the victim with me. I'm giving you 2 choices. 1. From now on, you take orders from me and work for me. 2. I turn you into an idiot. Seeing that the honey trap didn't work, Qingyun dropped her pitiful act and said angrily, do you know what price you'll pay if Qingming finds out you took me? This time, Lin Shi no longer hid his strength. Instead, he released the entirety of his Tier 9 spiritual power for Qingyun to feel. Then tell me, what price will I pay? Qingyun's pupils shrank, her voice turning sharp. What level of spiritual power user are you exactly? Qingyun's eyes widened, staring at Lin Shi in disbelief. Her heart was pounding wildly. Her eyes, usually as clear as water, were now filled with terror, which was quickly replaced by an even greater fear. She had faced Tier 7 spiritual power users in the organization before, but compared to the spiritual power she felt from Lin Shi right now, the pressure she endured from those Tier 7s was absolutely nothing. This overwhelming spiritual power crashed down on her like an erupting volcano or a collapsing sea, making her feel as if she were standing in the middle of a raging storm, swaying and on the verge of collapse. Qingyun felt like a tiny ant that could be crushed at any moment. She couldn't imagine how someone so young could possess such terrifying spiritual strength. What tier are you exactly? Tier 7? Tier 8? Qingyun had never encountered a Tier 9 spiritual power user, so naturally, she couldn't guess Lin Shi's true level. Lin Shi didn't answer. He just looked at her calmly, waiting for her choice. A fierce struggle flashed in Qingyun's eyes. She gritted her teeth and said, what do you want? Me? Or do you want me to do something? Lin Shi ignored Qingyun's tense expression and said coldly, I have no interest in you. I have some things to do, and you just need to help me clear away some obstacles. When I need you to act, use your resources and abilities to handle it. Just like the situation with the combat squad this time. If he had let Qingyun handle it instead of doing it himself, the outcome would definitely have been much better. Hearing that Lin Shi only wanted her to work, Qingyun breathed a sigh of relief. As long as she didn't have to sell her body and serve someone, it was fine. As for the rest, as long as she had time, there would be a way to turn things around. I agree. Qingyun adjusted her breathing and said with determination, I like people who know what's good for them. Lin Shi immediately changed his tone and asked about Qingming. What tier is the spiritual power user behind your organization? Qingyun sat down on the sofa and said weakly, I don't know. I was trained by Qingming from a young age to become an inner member, but even I have never met the head of Qingming. My highest superior is a Tier 7 named Qingxian. What is the parasite? Lin Shi continued to ask. It's a type of parasitic organism passed down within the organization, mainly used on core members. People like me were implanted with the parasite from a young age, which helps our spiritual power grow at a rate far exceeding that of ordinary people. Both the parasites and the antidotes are controlled by Qingxian. Every month, the organization sends someone to deliver the parasite suppressant. As for a true antidote that can kill the parasite, honestly, I don't even know if it exists. No one has ever obtained it. This time, Qingyun didn't hide anything and told him everything she knew. If possible, Qingyun didn't want to stay in the organization forever, but she had no other choice. If you want me to work for you, I can only help you in secret. If I'm too obvious about it, it will definitely make Qingxian suspicious. If he stops giving me the antidote, I'll gradually turn into a puppet. If that happens, I'd rather you just turn me into an idiot. The more Qingyun spoke, the more despondent she became. Thinking about how being ordered around by the organization wasn't enough, and now she was being ordered around by someone else, she just wanted to die. Thinking of the fate of the puppets in the organization, Qingyun got goosebumps and shuddered. Then what if I told you I have a way to remove the parasite from your brain? Would you serve me completely? Lin Shi pulled out a small knife from nowhere. The knife flipped up and down in his hand, creating blurry afterimages. To her horror, Qingyun realized that even with her spiritual abilities, she couldn't track the trajectory of the small knife. Lin Shi picked up a piece of fruit from the table and tossed it into the air. In the blink of an eye, when the fruit fell back into his hand, it had been carved into an exquisite work of art. What kind of ability is this? Qingyun's eyes widened in disbelief. Physical strength reaching level 6. Aren't you a level 2 evolver? Lin Shi put the knife away and showed the fruit to Qing Yun. 6. Level 6. How can you have such terrifying physical strength? Qing Yun couldn't believe her eyes, but the truth right in front of her left no room for doubt. Just moments ago, she had confidently used her status as an expert in the organization to threaten Lin Shi, wanting to scare him into submission. Now, in the face of this absolute disparity in strength, those threats seemed pale and even ridiculous. Her face turned deathly pale, cold sweat beaded on her forehead, and her body trembled uncontrollably. Only now did she truly realize her own recklessness and ignorance, and finally understand how terrifying Lin Shi was. At this point, Qing Yun truly didn't dare to ask anything else. Before, she had wanted to probe into Lin Shi's background, but now, she knew that the more she knew, the more dangerous it was. Because the man in front of her was absolutely not an opponent she could fight against. Qing Yun completely gave up any thought of playing tricks. In front of such a powerhouse, any little move she made couldn't possibly escape his notice. If she were caught, she wouldn't even know how she died. Do you really have a way to remove the parasite from my brain? Qing Yun looked at Lin Shi anxiously, desperate for a definitive answer. I do, Lin Shi replied. Qing Yun was still young and had always been controlled by medication, so the parasite in her brain shouldn't have spread yet. It was perfectly suited for surgical removal. With his current level 6 physical strength, performing this surgery wouldn't be a difficult task for him. Receiving an affirmative answer from Lin Shi, Qing Yun's eyes flickered as she quickly weighed the authenticity of his words in her mind. After thinking for a long time, Qing Yun still didn't dare to place her life in the hands of a stranger. She lowered her eyes and said, "Let me think about this. You want me to work for you, so what benefits can you give me? You should know that if you want a horse to run, you have to feed it." At this moment, Qing Yun was truly seriously considering working for Lin Shi, rather than just planning to deceive him and find a way to escape like before. Lin Shi naturally understood that he couldn't just keep using her life to force Qing Yun to work for him. That wasn't a long-term solution. Knowing this woman had taken the bait, Lin Shi played his strongest card to persuade her. I can help you upgrade your physical tier. Qing Yun suddenly stood up, her pupils shrinking drastically. You have the materials?